Justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, first thing is approval of the agenda, additions, corrections. Additions.
We got a insurance renewal.
Is that this?
Yep. So, you wanna Chat about that.
And I guess what I got wrote down probably all falls under old business or unfinished business. You know, we're gonna talk a little about the school. Few things like that, so. With that, then somebody make a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Someone second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the bill minutes and the bills, additions, corrections to the minutes. Anybody here?
To the bills, Hawkins should be 651, not 65.
The what?
In the bills, under Hawkins, it should be 651, not 65.
I never even got a copy.
I didn't get bought bills.
That's strange. I'll grab one for you.
With that being said, somebody make a motion to approve the minutes, or you want a minute to look at bills? Did you get bills, Tom?
Yep, there, I got them on my computer.
Oh. I bet I got my mind at home too. My wife had turned it on.
Sure, bud.
I don't have my computer.
So they didn't charge us anything to come out and look for them water leaks, huh? It's written
North
down
Mankato.
in here.
North Mankato or?
It's just water leak detection, no amounts in it.
It was North Mankato both times. Well, then you had the guy with the cities too.
Yeah,
huh?
he would have been the.
It was on last month's
It was last month, yeah.
Yeah, that was on last month's bill, so she just has a line for it now.
I don't know, Mankato didn't used to charge, right? Years ago.
North Mankato never did. No,
Yeah.
no, we had them. Yeah,
That's really confusing.
but that's,
Leave them lines in there like that. I'll move to approve.
Someone second?
I haven't seen it all yet.
I do have a question in revenues. But that's not bills. So.
Did the sheriffs, did they have it in their contract at all to go up a little bit each beginning of each new year? Does anybody remember?
Don't
I
remember.
think it was negotiable, wasn't it?
I mean, there wasn't an automatic 2% or 3%. I don't think I remember.
I don't think so.
I think they stated that if it got out of control, they'd come back to us or something, didn't they?
Well, I'm sure the gas is a little bit higher than they were anticipating probably. So. Okay, Tom made the motion. Someone second?
I'll second that motion after Ron's seen the bills.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
I
I oppose, motion carried. All right. Greg Burkhardt is here for our annual audit. Or would we say semi-annual?
Well, it's getting to be semi-annual, isn't it? This
Yeah.
is over the entire year. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that. So this year, as in past years, you guys have sat through a number of my reports. Try to keep it informal. So if we go through, if I go through something that skim over a little bit too fast, you'd like more discussion points on, please stop me and we'll do that. If I don't touch on something that has interest to you all, there'll be time for that at the end of the meeting. We can talk more about any of those things. So in the past, I've done a PowerPoint. I'm doing a paper point this go around. So I've got all of the slides that I would normally present printed off and I handed it out to everyone here at the council. So that's what I'm going to go through. So what we're going to touch on tonight is very similar to what you've seen in the past. We're going to talk about the different responsibilities over the financial reporting, management's responsibilities, mine, so on and so forth. We'll just briefly touch on audit results. So anything that we found that was out of place or out of line, we'll go through some of those items. There's some information that I'm required by professional standards to communicate to the council. We'll touch on some of that. And then we'll finalize this presentation with just a brief overview of the financial condition of the city. So hopefully you guys can see where the city's been, where you are now, with some clues to maybe where things will be in the future. All right, so if we want to get started on slide number 2, please. Slide number 2 describes management's responsibilities over financial reporting. All right, management is responsible for those basic financial statements. So I provided an electronic copy to Ashley earlier today, and you also have a bound physical copy here with the city as well. Management must make all the accounting decisions that are inherent in those financial statements. Obviously, management looks to the audit firm to give guidance and consult on those matters. However, that is a city responsibility. The other overall responsibility relates to internal controls. All right, so internal controls are real generically are the policies and procedures the city has in place that will protect your assets against fraud. All right, so if that means your cash in your checking account, money in your investments, it also includes equipment, vehicles, computers, supplies, paper, things of that nature. You must have policies that protect those against loss or any type of fraud. In addition to that, you must maintain accurate financial reports. So you need to find and correct any errors that might be present in your financial records. And that comprises the responsibility related to internal control. On slide number 3, describes your auditor's responsibilities. So my responsibilities are really threefold, and they revolve around the 3 reports that are provided over the financial audit for this year. So if we look on slide 3 on the left-hand side there, you see it states that we issue a financial opinion. That is over the actual numbers that you see in that audit report. All right, and as you can read there, we conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. All right, those standards require us to gather what we classify as sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. All right, so if I were to tell the city council at the end of last year, you had approximately $1.32 million of cash and investments, I can prove that. I can prove that because I have evidence. So all of the numbers that you see in your financial statements are backed by that same standard. They have that evidence, they have support for each one of those numbers. All right, that center section is a report on internal controls. So what we do when we come in and perform the audit, we review the policies and procedures the city has in place, and we try to determine, are they appropriate given the facts and circumstances the city finds itself in. If we see something that is missing or isn't operating according to plan, we probe those areas with different audit tests. We take a look at those to make sure that everything has been handled properly. And then we provide a report on what we find. And now finally, on the right-hand side there is a report on Minnesota legal compliance. So as you can read there, every city, actually every local government in the state of Minnesota is required to be evaluated against 7 different categories of compliance. And we actually spend an awful lot of time when we perform and conduct the audit, reviewing those 7 different categories to ensure that management and the city has complied with those provisions. And we also issue a report on our findings there as well. All right, over on to slide number 4. Slide 4 briefly summarizes the results of your audit this year. All right, so that very first, that top section you see, it states that the city's received a qualified opinion on your governmental activities. All right, in the world of audits, qualified is not good. Qualified does not mean that you measured up to standards. And really what's going on there is the city has a voluntary fire relief that has a pension plan. And that pension plan's gains or losses are backed by the city. So if the pension plan were to have a tough year in their investments, the city would need to potentially make up that difference. Because of that, that pension plan should be incorporated with your audit, and it was not. And since it was not, we have to qualify that opinion, which basically means everything is okay except for not including that pension plan with your financial statements. The state auditor is okay with this. There's a number of cities around Minnesota that choose to not go forward with including that pension plan and your financial statements. If you so chose to do that, you can. And I recommend, considering it because it does give you some good information on how well that plan is funded. It gives some good forecast on, are there going to be enough assets to support the liabilities or the benefit payouts that will come in the future? Okay. The second section on page 4 says you received an unmodified opinion on everything else. So except for the matter of not bringing in that pension plan, the city's records are in good shape. So the financial statements that you see in front of you or when you receive them electronically, the numbers accurately reflect the transactions for the year. All right, so that's your clean audit report in air quotes. All right, so the third section relates to our report on internal control. Again, those policies and procedures. So as an audit firm, the profession requires that when we come in and we see things that aren't quite appropriate, or if we see something that has some limitations or isn't designed or operating effectively, we have to make note of those, and we call them findings. And those findings or those limitations are separated into 2 broad categories. The first and most significant or the most severe finding is classified as a material weakness. Material weakness means that something is wrong in your system such that either you had a fraud or you had loss of assets or there were significant material errors in your financial records. Unfortunately, this year we did note something that rose to that level of material weakness, and we classified it as material audit adjustment. We'll talk a little bit more about what those adjustments were later on in the presentation, but there were a handful of adjustments that had we not made those financial statements would not have been accurate and they would have been misstated. Okay. So our recommendation there is to review the adjustments that we made. I provided Ashley with those adjusting entries. I'd like her to take a look at those, attempt to understand what we're doing and why, so that in the future, those adjustments will be made by city staff prior to that information coming to your audit firm. All right, the other category of internal control findings that we have is classified as significant deficiency. Less severe than a material weakness. Doesn't mean something is broken necessarily, excuse me, but it does warrant attention from governance. I mean, it basically says there are some weaknesses there. There's some limitations that need to be considered and corrected. The first entry you see there is classified as payroll processing. So again, this year, as we have seen unfortunately in the past, and it's kind of a repeat, tax payments were not being made accurately or timely. There's certain provisions of the law with the IRS or the state of Minnesota that withholdings, PERA, pensions, things of that nature must be deposited with these taxing authorities under certain guidelines and at certain amounts. And again, we found that had not happened during the year. Now, I will say it did improve. Obviously, I came in here and we did the mid-year audit. And things since that mid-year audit certainly has improved. So I will say that there's been some progress made on that end. But again, our recommendation is to continue forward with our recommendation from the summer. Have somebody at the council level review those quarterly reports, review those payroll summaries, and ensure that those tax payments are being made. And that is the best line of defense that you can have to at least try to limit this as a repeat finding. All right, the next two elements you see listed there is preparation of the financial statements and segregation of duties. These have been with the city for a number of years, predated my time with the city, and they will continue on here well past you and I and everyone here moving forward. Doesn't mean that they're not important, so it's certainly something to give some consideration to. The first one I want to talk about is preparation of the financial statements. If you remember back from slide 2, that is a responsibility of management. You guys have asked my firm to prepare those on your behalf, frankly, because it's cheaper and easier. Unfortunately, it does create some risk that there could be something wrong and we may not see it and you may not see it. Our recommendation there is honestly just to accept the risk. If you were to go out and pay another firm separate from the audit to do a financial statement preparation, you'd be looking at significant outlay of money. So the best thing that you can do along those lines is when the audit is complete, look at it and evaluate it against your internal records and make sure that it at least coincides with what you anticipate you'll see. And then finally,
What do you exactly mean by financial statements? What form is that?
that's everything that we provide. So the bound booklet,
The bond book, okay.
the bound booklet, so the numbers, the disclosures, everything that comprises your annual audit report. All right, so segregation duties, that's the last one listed under significant deficiencies. And this one relates to Ashley as a clerk. She holds the office, combined office, a clerk treasurer. And because of that, she has too many accounting responsibilities in relation to a perfectly designed system. So what that means is she can bring a transaction from start to finish. She can open the mail, process a bill, all the way through to writing a check. Because of that, there is a limitation there. And really, unfortunately, unavoidable limitation, to get a proper segregation of duties, you'd likely need 4 staff members in that office. That's not going to work with the city's budget. So under those pretenses, what can happen here is the city council can stand in the way or can step in as a member of management, review bills, review financial statements, look at budget and actual results. If something doesn't coincide with how you anticipate that being, where there are vendors that are being paid that you're not familiar with, duplicate payments to vendors, you guys should be able to notice that, ask questions to make sure that it's not going to happen or that something won't cause the city to see a loss or a fraud. And a lot of times with segregation of duties, you hear the word fraud kicked around quite a bit. That's not the biggest risk, honestly. The biggest risk is just simple error. One person seeing something start to finish, it's very easy to get a decimal place out of order. Obviously, you had a correction in your bills today. That kind of thing happens. So the more eyes, the more hands that are on things, the better result you'll have at the end of the day.
When we get money from like Lyra Township and that for the fire protection, should we be making sure that all goes into the fire? Or, because we get it from Rapidan, Lyra, and a little bit of
Mapleton or Decoria.
Decorah.
Yep.
So when that money comes in, do we have to make sure that gets in, it just doesn't stay in the general fund, and make sure it gets to the fire department?
Well, as I understand your billing, you're always billing 6 months behind. So when you send out those bills, you show the townships, here are all the expenses that we've had related to your fire protection. I don't think it's necessarily a contract rate where it's a set dollar amount. Some cities will say, okay, with our townships, we're going to bill you X amount of dollars per section or per structure that you have. I believe the way that your contracts are situated is that you say, okay, we're going to charge you basically what it costs us to run the fire department. So whether or not that means you got to buy a pumper truck or a tanker or whatever it is, the townships are required to pay that.
And
So
that's
you're
how-
always paying behind. So really, when you get that money in, it simply reimburses the city for costs that have already been incurred.
But we got to make sure it gets out into that fund. though, right?
Correct? Yes, the correct category. You need to
Yep.
make sure it's segregated out into that correct category. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, so the last section on this summarized audit results slide relates to Minnesota statutes, legal compliance findings. Again, as you recall, there are 7 categories that are required to be evaluated. Unfortunately, we found a number of compliance issues this year while we conducted the audit. I'll kind of go through these. Some of these are going to be rehash from what we talked about this summer. So the first element you see there is claims and disbursements. That's one of the broad categories. That claims and disbursements relates to payments that were made beyond the statutory threshold. All right, so as a city government that meets monthly, all bills must be paid within 35 days unless there is a dispute with the vendor and there's a reason, or contractually you're not required to pay that bill immediately. And we found a number of payments that were made late this year. Some of those, again, were that first half of the year, but there were some that came about towards the end of the year as well. So it seems like there's a consistent pattern here. It's an easy enough thing to correct. I know we talked a little bit about this summer, authorizing the clerk treasurer to make payments between meetings for any invoice that might end up being due before the council meets. I don't know if there's been any action taken on that front, but you certainly could give that opportunity, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a utility bill or anything of that nature, so that you don't incur finance charges, so that those payments can be made timely. Now, I'm not going to throw the post office under the bus, but we have seen a extensive increase in the number of payments that are being made late. The post office is just running slower than it has in the past. COVID's really done kind of a number on them. It seems like it's gotten better lately, but this isn't unusual. We're seeing this all over, but it's something that's easy to correct. So make sure those bills come through, make sure that they're getting paid timely. You have 35 days from the date of that invoice.
We did have that happen with the LJP bill this year. We had 2 of them on the bill because it came after a council meeting, but it was
Yes.
postmarked here, but it came like 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
You know, so-
That's happening. Yeah, it's unfortunate because all the mail from southern Minnesota, where does it go? Goes to Minneapolis,
Minneapolis, yeah.
whatever direction
Yeah.
that is, that way, it goes that way. And it has to come down. So if you're mailing something across the street, it's taken quite a journey to get back through here. So that is happening. I'm not going to say that's the entirety of why we saw those late payments. I think there's some other issues that are at play. But that does incorporate a good bit of it, a majority of those.
Is it any of the same thing?
No, not one thing in particular. I guess I don't have that in front of me, but I didn't notice any trends where it was just one particular vendor over another. I think it's a randomized sort of a thing that we're seeing late payments.
I noticed that when I look at Bulworth County bills, they have received on every one of them. So the date,
Sure.
a little deal that says received, the date and time. Maybe that's why,
It could be.
you know what I mean? So that there's record that
Yes.
did not.
So,
get the
and
bill.
that's one of the things that we would take into consideration. So, and we randomly sample a number of invoices and we're looking at invoice date versus that check date. And if the city wanted to get a stamp where you can put that down, received on this date, have the clerk treasurer initial that so that you have a record of when that was received. Once it's received, then you have your 35 days.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Especially if there's a significant length of time, if you get an LJP bill 3 weeks past the date on the, and it's happened in my office too.
Yeah.
I've received, our telephone bill and it's due in like 3 days. Like I just got this today. So it does happen, but it's something, again, that's easy to correct. So if that does come about, you don't necessarily need a stamp, just make a note on the invoice that this was dated 2 weeks ago and I just received it now. But that also, kind of dovetails on the opportunity or the option to allow payment between meetings for those kind of items. And if you were to set a resolution and said, okay, here are the bills that will allow to be paid prior to council approval, you can give a dollar amount, a maximum. Now, when those bills would then be presented at the council, you would say, hey, these are the ones that were paid between meetings. You would still have to formally approve those at your next meeting. So that's certainly an option for the city if this is continuing to happen more and more. All right, so the next element there is under the heading deposits and investments. So there's an awful lot of compliance required of public funds. how it sits in your bank and what is required there. What we found, you guys do have investments with an investment broker. And we could talk more about your investments, and we have talked in the past about those. Your investments are performing terribly, absolutely terribly. I think at this point, our recommendation, I can't tell you guys what to do with that, but there's no reason to have them in investments anymore. It's just cash. And you're receiving, I think, $20 of earnings this year.
Well, I think we gave direction here a month or 3 months ago or something about searching out local banks to see if they would
Highly recommend it.
get more money. Did that ever get anywhere?
No, because we were gonna have Larry come in and talk to us and I can't get a hold of Larry, even.
Then I guess we forget Larry and move on.
Yeah, I would work with the local banks.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're starting to pay a lot better interest. Interest rates ticked up there for a while, and then, the inflation and all this other stuff kind of hit. And I know I've seen some other cities that have renewed 12-month CDs that were at 1.25% are down to 0.3,
Really?
which seems unusual. So it's gonna start to creep up, though. I can certainly assure you of that. As inflation picks up, as the Fed increases their borrowing rate, the savings accounts, CDs are gonna pay a lot better interest. Unfortunately, that's all you're really relegated to. You have investment accounts, but they're cash. And I've got some more comments on your investments here later on in this presentation as well. So anyway, back to the compliance finding. The fact that you hold money with a broker annually, you need to receive information from that broker, sign a signed statement that he or she will only invest with investment vehicles that are allowed by statute. That did not happen this year. So that needs to happen towards the end of December, first part of January. You reach out to your broker, tell them to sign this statement, receive it back before any type of transactions happen during the year. Again, easy compliance item to fix, easy to forget as well. So again, if you're going to continue with an investment broker, I think the one has been received now. So that's been corrected. So this form has been received back, but it needs to happen at the beginning of the year. All right, now the final one here, contract bid laws. Contracts are of vital importance to the state auditor and audit firms because of there's been a lot of issues over the years, not here in Good Thunder necessarily, but throughout the state. So there's significant laws that are in play that mandate and dictate what cities can do when they write a contract. And contracts can be written or they can be verbal. All right, so I did pass out a supplement to the slides that we're going over here that describe the different laws. And this is directly from the checklist that our audit firm uses when we evaluate contracts. All right, so what we found was that the city received a quotation from DMI. And that quotation was offered to the city back in 2019. On that quotation, they estimated their work to be approximately $184,000. As you can read on that excerpt that I provided to you, any contract that is estimated to be over $175,000 must be let by sealed bid. And to go down the sealed bid route, you need to advertise in the paper for 2 weeks, list out when the bid opening is going to happen, all the provisions of the contract, and allow anyone that does that type of work an opportunity to bid on that project. That did not happen. I know there was some lengthy discussion about how to handle the DMI work, whether you're going to try to split it up back and forth. But unfortunately, you guys received that quotation. DMI honored it shockingly from how long ago, but it did go over that threshold.
And I know specifically it was supposed to be materials, labor, 2 different deals. But where does that fail? At us? Where does that fail when it's supposed to be divided up and it doesn't get that way at the total end, at the end?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I don't know. I'm not really comfortable saying where that responsibility lies. It lies with the city. I think it starts with management and it ends with the council.
So I mean, I guess there's a number of things that us 5 have to improve upon quite a little, really.
As it relates to contracting, Yes.
That and financials, you've said management. Well, we're management, right?
In a small city, your governance, but in a small city, when you have a combined clerk treasurer, you do have a responsibility in that regard. Yes. Council can step in and take over some of those roles of management. Agreed. So as you can read there's different thresholds on what's required when you sign a contract or when you go out and get contract work. The first threshold is at $25,000. Anything below $25,000, as you can read there, it states that there's a presumption that you will get at least 2 quotes. You'll directly negotiate, and it says practicable. Well, what does that mean? I think that means if there are 2 vendors, 2 contractors that can do the work, it's practicable. Go get 2 quotes. Between 25 and 175, you have essentially the same requirement. There isn't much different there about what you're required to do. The burdensome compliance requirements, they don't kick in until $175,000. And that's been increased. So 3-4 years ago, that threshold was $100,000, and it was quite easy to get over that level. So they bumped it up a little bit. So I would think, be careful when you're going to do this work. I know you guys operate, you're doing some repairs in your streets, the utility funds, and it isn't hard to get up over those thresholds. So if you have any anticipation that you're going to be there, you need to stop and get in touch with somebody that can help you guys do a sealed bid.
It is fine though to do that. Say you did another sewer main, water main, whatever it may be. Is it all right to divide the materials up versus the labor? Is that all right to do it that way?
Well, that's a good question. And I think what I would suggest is if you're trying to go down that route, I would talk with legal counsel. See if Chris would come in and talk you through how that process should look.
Either that or engineers should be able to give you that too, that it's
Yep.
absolutely.
A lot of
fine
contractors,
by-
they don't want to bid it separately, and there's some benefit to doing that, because number one, if you bid, time versus materials, and you go buy your own materials, you guys are tax exempt. So you don't pay sales tax on those purchases. When that contractor buys them, he does.
Yep. Yep.
They're actually working on a bill right now. I just read it this morning. The legislature's trying to get an exception to that rule so that if you do end up with a construction contract that has materials and labor, that you can file a refund with the state to receive back that interest, which would be really nice. That'll either 1, reduce the contract cost, or 2, you get a reimbursement back from the state on any sales tax for those materials. But what you can't do is attempt to avoid these thresholds. So you can't say, we've got one project, I want this contractor to bill me in 2 separate installments, because then you're trying to weasel through kind of some of that law.
Mhm.
The only way that would be kosher is if you put both of those out there and you had bids and quotations from multiple vendors.
From the material people and the labor people.
Exactly. And they don't have to be the same firm, so that's one way that you can prove that, hey, we did this in good faith. We've got DMI doing the dirt work. We've got Holtmeyer or somebody doing the materials, buying that for us, or whoever that ends up.
Yep. Okay.
At that point, then you've made a good faith effort and you can demonstrate clearly that this was not in an attempt to evade that threshold.
And again, any of that there, well, we didn't go through the engineer on that project, did we?
I don't know.
Because, it's simply run them
They had a lot of
downhill.
costs.
So if you would have had them involved, they probably would have caught that probably.
Very likely. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're going to do that to save engineering costs, we got to make sure we're thinking.
Yep.
What all needs to be done right.
Yeah. And you guys can certainly reach out to me. I'm happy to advise Chris. I know he's aware of these rules as well. That's why I brought that supplement so that you can take a look at it. There's more nuance behind it. There's an awful lot of law behind it, but at least it gives you the statutes. You go online, you Google those statutes, you can pick them up and you can read everything that's required in there. So there's exceptions to just about everything. Every law has got an exception, but those are very broad based and those should stand for pretty much any type of construction contract you guys would get involved with down the road.
Well, he was here a month or 2 ago and we were buying a pump for across the street, like $4,500, and he interrupted and said, Mr. Mayor, you need 2 bids, even on a maintenance item. Of course, then you think about it, you got to get fair pricing. Because if you're with the good old boys that you've done business for 30 years, and there might be a new guy on the block, I guess when you think back, you gotta think ahead of the 8 ball all the time.
Yeah, and again, I think Chris has given you guys good advice. You can read the rules there. I mean, again, it's that when practical. So if you're in an emergency situation where you've got a pump that fails, you don't have time to go out and reach out to 4 or 5 different vendors. At that point, you can go forward with one, but once you get over $25,000, then it's a mandatory thing. You need at least 2 quotations. Also, you need to maintain files for those quotes. So you cannot just get a quote and out the door it goes. Oh, we'll just shred this paper. You need to maintain those so that when your audit firm comes in and we ask, okay, what bids were let? What contract work do you have? Let me see your quotes. Let me see your proposals that you receive from these vendors. So make sure that you're holding on to those as well.
When we did that well project across the street here, that was like $36,000 and we just had the end to it, right? When they fixed that wellhead over here. And Chris said if we had a preferred vendor on something like that, we could just do that. But that one,
We didn't know what it was gonna be until they got into it, what it was gonna needed repair.
Yeah, they had to pull the well casing, and it got more expensive as it went. It was just for maintenance on the bottom of the
Right.
pump. But then they got some in there and the casings were bad. So yeah, so I mean,
Well, here's a really bad one. So this happens. I've read statements from the state auditor. So let's say you go out, you get a proposal for some work, this DMI work, and let's say they assumed and they estimated it was gonna be $160,000. They get in the middle of the project and they come and find that there's a couple of change orders. Some conditions were present that they weren't aware of. So now their change order is for $20,000. Guess
above the
what?
threshold.
You just went over. At that point, you have to stop all work. You have to rebid that project through sealed bid. That actually happens. Can you imagine the disruption? You're gonna owe them money regardless. Now you got to stop them mid-project. You got to go out and rebid that. So there's some holes. I mean, there's some problems with the law, the way that it's written, but it's there for a reason. It's there because this has been taken advantage of in the past. Obviously not here with the city, but throughout the state of Minnesota.
if our contracts had a concealed conditions clause, would that cover that?
As long as you didn't have to pay out for it, yes, you'd be
Yeah.
fine.
Or maybe I'm just asking if we had no payment, but if there was up to X amount,
Mhm.
I just wonder if that would cover it too.
Yeah, I guess I'm not
How was
familiar
it
with
in the
those
contract?
particulars. But I know at 175, regardless of whether it was estimated at 160 and it went over because of the add-ons, that contract is now over the threshold that needs to be bid. So
We had
it's,
that, we had 25,000 in extra, didn't we? There was a few extras at the
Yeah.
end there.
yeah, there was,
And we thought they were fine because it was 2 years later and they honored the original bid and
yeah.
So when you get bids like this, and does the city have to keep them on file for X amount of years?
Forever.
Forever? Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, you don't get to throw anything away. You can only get rid of city documents if you get approval from the State Historical Society. Or you set up, and I go down this road, trust me, document retention policy that's got to get approved by the state, which says after so many years, you can start shredding and getting rid of documents. But for all intents and purposes, you can keep it forever. Basically anything city-wise.
because you think like Excel bills and stuff like that, they're online and you're
Mhm.
paid, but you gotta keep all that
Keep
stuff.
them forever. Emails, you name it, you've got to keep it.
We followed like the league's retention schedule. How does that play in with, because.
Read it. Yeah, that's a huge document.
Yeah, it's like
Keep
200
it all.
pages. Yeah.
Unless you get approval from the state, so you can have your own document retention policy, you can adopt theirs by resolution,
Mhm.
but that has to be approved by, it's some group at the state, I don't know exactly who that is, but I think it's the Historical Society or the historical group up there, but so we just advise our cities, and again, if you're interested in that, ask Chris, he'll have better information than I will.
Well, we were gonna put all of our information back there on CDs or something, weren't we?
You can certainly do that,
Start scanning it
So
in.
we're working
Yeah.
on it.
Scanning them?
Yeah.
make sure you got the
Still working
backups,
on it, yeah.
because that can fail too.
Mhm.
No different than city halls can get flooded out when they got all their archives down in the basement, that stuff happens. Just make sure that you've got a way to retrieve that or you have adequate backups,
Hard drive for the hard drive.
basically.
Yeah.
Yes, cloud storage, a lot of good stuff. Okay, so that comprises the audit results per se, your findings, again, you got a clean report, financial statements, reflect the activity of the year. I think that's the most important takeaway here. So on slide number 5 and 6 begins a discussion. Like I already mentioned, I have some things my professional standards require me to communicate to the council. I'm not going to get too deep into any of these. We do have a management report I provided to Ashley electronic that will dive into these elements much more in depth than I will tonight. The only thing I do want to touch on though is that first section on slide 5 under auditor assurance. I'm not going to read that statement back to the council, but essentially what this is, it talks about what an audit can provide. All right, audits are good, but we're not perfect and they're not absolute. So the takeaway is that there are no guarantees. Do not ride on the laurels or ride on the coattails of your audit firm came in, everything must be hunky-dory. That's just not the case. We don't design audits to do that. We don't look at every check. We don't look at every deposit. We sample, we gather evidence that allows us to put an opinion together. So what I'm trying to communicate here is that please maintain your diligence. Oversee the clerk treasurer, oversee the financial reporting to the city. Just because you got a clean audit doesn't necessarily mean there can't be something lurking in there.
Here's one thing. How many people pay in cash for water?
A handful.
I mean, are we talking $500-800 or
No,
$1,500?
because the Thunder comes in and pays theirs in cash and that's over 1,000 every quarter.
So when you get into being, cash, especially that, do you look at the receipts that were wrote out and receiving that cash? And do you look at the bank deposits to show that that cash was in there? Because that would be that's one you'd have to really clarify every time, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing, and I'll play devil's advocate, and I'm not suggesting you're doing this, but
Definitely not.
let's say the Thunder Bar shows up with $1,000 and Ashley decides she wants it. Do you think she's going to write a receipt out for that $1,000? We can't audit what's not recorded. So if you're dealing in cash, I'll never know if it's gone. That's one of the inherent problems with an audit. I can't tell you that cash was received here, wasn't recorded, wasn't deposited. Once there's a note made, once a receipt's filled out, once a deposit hits the bank, now you've got pretty good controls. Now we've got paper trails. We can find that. We can follow that. We can follow the breadcrumbs. But if somebody comes in and pays for a dog license or pays for this or that, and it's cash and there's no receipt, it's virtually impossible to find out. And we run into this a lot of times with school districts. We do a lot of school district audits. You think about going out to the Friday night football game, everybody's paying with cash. How do you know how much of that was collected or wasn't? There's just inherent limitations. So my suggestion is don't let them pay in cash. Why are they paying in cash? I think that throws up a red flag in my mind anyway.
Yeah, that large amount.
I'm not going to say what I feel like saying in the meeting, but that really has me wondering why. I think you should say, hey, we don't work in cash.
Well, to make sure everything is better. During you brought up, we don't even charge for dog license anymore, right?
I just use that.
Yeah, for reality, anything cash now is probably strictly water bill. So would we, the quarter it's billed, have Ashley write down for us that, X amount of cash was received? So I mean,
The thing is, when someone pays their water bill, it goes into Banyan and says they paid their water
And
bill.
it says cash and it says the receipt number.
So it's like you can't steal $1,000 because it would show up as not being paid on their water bill.
Or unless you write it off.
Yeah, well,
Okay, so and I'm just gonna go down that road. So one thing that you can do, and hopefully this is a self-correcting issue, if somebody pays cash for their water bill, you've got to get that water bill written down one way or another. Otherwise, next month they're gonna get another bill and it's gonna show double. Likely someone's gonna come into City Hall and say, what's going on here? I paid this thing.
well, we've had a lot of system errors in Banyan, it seems like. So what would happen if that happened and it was gone?
Yeah, well, and those amounts can be adjusted. So that's something to be very careful of. And that's one thing that we can do as an audit procedure is we go in and we look at, were any of these accounts adjusted? Was there any refunds issued? Were there any of these other activities that would, and there's an auditing term for it, it's called kiting. And basically what you're doing is you're taking that money and you're applying it either against somebody else's account or you're putting it on, in your pocket, and then you're writing down the amount, the balance that would be owed from that customer. So that's a great method for the council to oversee that that's not happening. If you're worried about cash collections, something could go wrong. Again, it's not always about theft. It can also be about error. Look at those adjustments. You should not see any adjustment. And you can take it even a step further and say, Ashley, every adjustment on a water bill requires council approval for any reason. And then those adjustments come to the council, you sign off on every one of them. That's probably your best way that you're gonna make sure that any cash for water bills, any other things that could be going on, again, errors happen, then you guys would have some pretty good control to make sure that that's not gonna be the case. It's gonna increase the amount of activity that you guys have going on each month when you come in, but you could certainly assign a council member. You could rotate those. Somebody's looking at payroll, somebody's looking at utility billing and reviewing those reports and making sure that there isn't anything written off.
I think the only adjustment we ever had on water bills, we've credited somebody back when they were charged. Or like the huge water consumption is one where we've cut a deal on it. We've never had
How many do you think you do a month?
Adjustments?
one a year, two a year.
We've seen more than that.
Really?
Yeah, it does
a
happen.
couple. This
You
last
just have a
one,
big one?
yeah,
Yeah.
protein, up here, when it came through the meter, it came through
And these
as
things aren't perfect
$5
either.
million. So that's obviously, they didn't use $5 million worth of water,
Yep.
but
But there's other items that happen. There, a meter could read wrong, or there could be something else. You could key that information in, or something can happen. And I know that we do see it. It's not to the level that we have concerns. Otherwise, we'd be talking about that with the council. But that's one way, especially with the fact that there is cash collected on these bills, that you can ensure that that cash is always deposited.
Well, I mean, many years upon years, I think it was $10 for a dog license, right? There's like 100 dogs in town, 90, whatever. So, you got to be a lot of cash there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would try to limit that as much as you can. You can certainly have a policy, we don't take cash. That does happen.
Can you address quickly too, because I know it's been mentioned here that we should hold a bunch of cash. We can't do that. Like, I think you told us before that when we have $200 in cash, we need to deposit that. We can't sit here and hold up to 2,000
Yeah, I
and
agree.
then go in and deposit.
Yep, and it becomes a pain. You guys don't have a bank account anymore, so you're traveling every time that happens, so I think you want to limit it as much as you can. Obviously, certain times of the month, you're gonna receive more cash than others. And it's not always just cash, paper bills, checks can be thefted as well. So hopefully there's a stamp where you're stamping for deposit only for your account.
Ours
If
are
not-
all electronically scanned now.
Yep, so you have a bank machine here?
Yeah.
Oh, simple. Then, yeah, you get those, at certain times of the year, you're gonna start collecting on those bills. Just start running them. As soon as you get them, maybe daily during that week where bills are due, then any other time, get it in the bank. If you have cash, make a every other day trip, or whatever it could be, or just set a dollar amount that, well, I got too much cash, time to get.
yeah,
time to get to the bank.
checks are usually, when they come in twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon.
Mhm.
Cash is usually
Yeah, if you got a
by
bank
end of the
machine,
week,
that's
which
easy.
is a lot, so.
Yep. Oh, that's very good. Okay, so good discussion. We're on slide number 6, continuing on with this required stuff I gotta talk to you guys about. So I'm also required by professional standards to discuss and describe changes that we made to your records, how they're held here during the year versus what you find and what you see in the financial statements that were audited. So this year we proposed 39 journal entries based on how Banyan kept the records or how Ashley kept the records versus what you see in the financials. That's a tick more than what we normally see. Nothing too outlandish. I mean, it's very common. It's typically in that 30 entry range. Nothing I'm terribly concerned about. I will say that I think there has been some improvement. The records did seem to be a little cleaner than what we found them in the past. Unfortunately, 4 of those adjustments that we made, we would consider correction of management errors. All right, so there was a handful of them. Some of them had to do with fire department receipts. Some of them had to do with fire department pension contributions. And I believe there was some accounts payable that was not recorded properly. In totality, had we not made those adjustments, those corrections, your financial statements would not have accurately reflected the transactions for the year. And that's why we made it.
This 39 is for the whole business year of 2021.
Well, as the balances were given to us at the end of the year, we made 39 adjustments, moved things around. Some of those are cash to accrual. So we're recording accounts payable, we're recording accounts receivable. So items that you receive after year end, but you earned it prior to the year end, vice versa with your bills. So you get a ton of bills in January, but those were services that were provided in December. We bring those back. So it runs the gambit.
But you have your mid-year audit,
Yes.
but does that include
Oh,
whole
no,
2021?
those entries were already posted. Yes.
So this is 39 in 6 months.
Correct. And again, some of those, even if you had a mid-year and everything was perfectly fine, you're gonna see 15 to 20 of those regardless. Again, it's some of the entries. So we make entries for the PERA liabilities. So you guys contribute to PERA for your employees. We have to make certain entries there. So there are some that are unavoidable. But yeah, there was 39. Again, I think the ones that I would focus more in on are those correction of errors. That's something that the city can take a look at. Again, review why they were posted, understand why we made the changes that we made so that moving ahead, the review happens prior to the audit firm coming out to do the work. So you look at those financials, you look at your records, and you make those adjustments here, and then we audit those adjustments. You're gonna get a much better product if you go that route. All right, so carrying on, we didn't find anything that we came across that we did not adjust. So everything that we noted that was wrong or out of place was adjusted by us. I'm also required to talk about difficulties encountered while performing the audit. Management, Ashley, was cooperative and helpful. She had the records in pretty good shape for us, able to locate every invoice that we requested. So there wasn't anything that we could not find because it wasn't available. So of all the random samples that we had out there, she was able to locate everything for us. So we do appreciate that. And there definitely has been improvement. So I think the records are coming along. They're moving in the direction that we'd like to see them move. All right, although we did have challenges, I always like to point out that there's always some silver lining there with everything that we have to discuss. All right, so on to slide number 7, we have a handful of recommendations. So we do, when we come out and do an audit, spend a couple of days out here, we dig through things in a very detailed manner. And we notice things that don't always belong in a formalized report. All right. And we try to capture some of those things, whether it be improvements to your internal control system, ways that you can better handle your assets or get better return on some of the things that the city holds. And we've captured a few of these here. I'm not going to read these to everybody. You guys can certainly see them. That first one relates to the material audit adjustments. So some of those corrections, we've already kind of talked at length about that. The second piece is the American Rescue Plan, or the ARPA money. And you guys might know it as COVID money. So the city received, what the heck was it? $30,000, maybe $32,000.
36 maybe, yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark last summer. Yeah, $31,000 ARPA, so COVID money. You're due to receive approximately the same amount here in just a couple of months. So I know it's shocking, but the US Treasury, the government actually did something right for a change. They've amended the rules on how cities are allowed to use that money. And they're allowing cities to elect what they call a standard allowance. If you make this election when you report your COVID money, that basically it removes all restrictions on use of those dollars. So it unhandcuffs the city. You're able to use that money for whatever you desire. It's unrestricted, as long as it's a lawful purpose.
Any entity, general funds, water, sewer,
Any.
anything?
Yeah, it
You
says,
can't go to Cancun
it
with it.
says
but
businesses, you can stimulate businesses and all kinds of stuff.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Now, and I think Ashley, you've got a resolution prepared, so you guys hopefully
Yeah.
get a chance to take a look at that later tonight. So that's roughly what, $63,000 that now you have the decisions you can make however you want. So if you've got street work, you've got water, utilities stuff, sewer lines that need to be lined or repaired or televised, however you want to do it. Yep. So the fact that you will make this election doesn't mean that you can't still call it COVID money, doesn't mean that you still don't track how you're spending that. I'm certain you have stakeholders that are gonna be interested in how it gets spent. I have people that have been knocking at the door asking for a use of that COVID money. So you can continue to do all of that, but it allows you all to make the decisions, and it takes the burden off of Ashley having to continually report that up to 3 times a year. So one report's made, all that COVID money, standard allowance, done. Highly recommend it. So that one's a no-brainer. That one's pretty easy. The other one there is an internal control policy update. Again, we talk at length, audit firms, and because, for good reason. Internal controls are vital to a city. They're vital to make sure that everything is where it belongs. All right. The city doesn't have extensive written internal control policies. Things change. I'm not aware that your policies have changed much in the last several years. So I'm recommending the city to go through your policies, and if they need to be rewritten or actually formally written, I think that would be time well spent. To capture who is supposed to do what are your requirements, what are you allowed to do, what are you not allowed to do, so that it's clear for everybody. Everybody here at this table and inside the city office.
So who does that then?
The city will. Well, I think if you were to go, yeah, it's not something that your audit firm can do. I'm not allowed to do that sort of thing. Because then we have to come back and we have to evaluate what you've
So
done.
do we hire somebody that has knowledge in that?
I think, now, are you guys still a part of the Council of Governments?
Yeah.
That's where I'd start.
Okay,
That would be a great place. Listserv would be another one. The League of Minnesota Cities has extensive policies. Now, I would never be a proponent to bring on a policy that you're never going to follow. All right, so if you're going to do it, make sure that it's something that has relevance to the city. You don't need all these fancy bells and whistles if you're not going to do it, because all we're going to do is come in and do the audit, say you guys aren't following any of your policies.
Because if you got it from the League of Minnesota Cities, that pertains to the Twin Cities versus Little Good Thunder. There's probably a whole array of things that we wouldn't need to follow on
Yep. Oh, yeah.
their list up there.
Absolutely. But that's a good starting place. And that listserv, you can put out a feeler, hey, does anyone have internal control policy for clerk treasurer position, small office? What do you guys do? And just enumerate it. It doesn't have to be more than a page. Here are my responsibilities. Here are council responsibility. Here are department head responsibilities. The whole gamut. I think it's worth looking at, and it's worth evaluating. The next one down the line there is related to EFT transactions, so electronic funds transfer approval. All right, so during the audit process, we noticed that the policy or the requirements of EFTs, you guys do EFTs for a number of different reasons. Payroll is the biggest one. Those approvals aren't happening the way that the state would like to see them happen. All right, so first and foremost, you're required to have an annual resolution that lists out who is allowed to make an electronic funds transfer, the purposes, and then those, anytime there's an EFT, and this is a great time when you guys are looking at these tax deposits that need to be made, those electronic funds transfers must be reported to the council. They must be approved here at this table. And we haven't found that that's being done. All right, so I suggest changing that, creating a policy so that you follow the guidelines placed by the state.
Is that mainly on payroll, you said?
The predominance of your transfers are payroll related,
Yeah.
but there are other things. Are you doing any other EFTs,
Like,
bill pay?
yeah,
stuff?
like, Excel and Northwest and Consolidated
Yep.
are like our
perfect,
utilities.
Perfect. Yep,
We see
absolutely.
those in the bills, but we're supposed to,
You have to approve
approve
those,
those.
every one of those. Yeah, and you have to have an annual. It's when you guys do your
January,
yes.
January do all
When you
that.
do your official paper, official depository, all that good stuff, you need a resolution that outlines what's required of those EFTs. In my management letter, if you can forward that to the council, describes that policy in much greater detail. So it tells you exactly which element you have to have and everything that needs to be in place there.
They must not have anything in place at the league, because I read their whole thing of what we're supposed to do in January, and it doesn't talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Wow,
in
yeah.
the leagues.
Yeah, we've never done the electronic fund transfer.
It's something that we're kind of keen on this last year and this year. And
Okay.
we're finding quite a few cities that are lacking in this regard. So you're not alone in that situation. But look at my management report under the recommendation page, and it's got some statutes. It's got a lot of the language that you need in a policy.
Do we have a copy of that?
You do not, I can get it to you though.
Yeah, please forward it.
Cause I got it this morning, so, or this afternoon, so.
Just now, yeah.
Yeah, I can print them tomorrow and drop them off to you guys.
Yep, it's all electronic. There's a lot of good information in there, honestly. It goes over what I'm talking to you guys right now, but in much greater detail. I'm sure you're not gonna want me to be any more detailed than I already am, so.
You used to give us that whole bound copy.
Yeah, there's a physical copy with the,
Paper's
city,
expensive, so.
I didn't know if it got expensive when we got cut.
well, I mean, if you want bound copies, we can certainly continue to do that, but everybody seems like they have computers anymore, the electronic age, it's just kind of how that's all, moves forward. So if you guys do want that, if you enjoy it and you desire.
I actually
let
look
me
at that
know.
quite a bit, when you're going through it, I make highlights and notes in there.
I do too.
Yeah.
We can certainly get a few more copies to the city. All right, the last one on the recommendation slide, I know I'm kind of going long as it is here, relates to the sewer fund. All right, and I've kind of titled that sewer fund liquidity. So you can read what's going on there. The sewer fund is out of cash. You're out of cash by about $136,000 upside down in your checkbook. All right,
Because we didn't transfer money for our sewer project.
you did some, but not enough.
Well, we did for out here in the street, but then we didn't do it down there across the field.
That county work,
Yeah.
$341,000. So in January, that bill, we talked about that at the mid-year, was paid a little bit late. And that bill was paid in January of 21, and then there was $180,000 brought over to help cover that DMI work. But that large county payment drained the account. It's upside down. So you do have investments in the sewer fund about the same amount, $132,000. So our suggestion is one of two things. Liquidate your investments. I think you honestly should just do it anyway. Those investments are not doing anything for the city at this stage of the game. And or move some more money from your general fund to basically bring that sewer fund out of the hole.
We need a resolution for that though.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, don't do that just because auditor said. Make sure you go through and get that resolution and pass that to get it moved over.
So how do the five of us keep on top of this to make sure these funds are getting moved in a timely manner so it doesn't show that it's in the hole?
Yeah, financial reports. That's the best way that you can safeguard against that. So I'm not sure what type of I know you get bills. And that's probably the extent to your financial reports.
They get expenditures, revenue, cash balance, summary, they get everything.
Okay, well, that's exactly what you should get. You should get a budget to actual for your expenses, budget to actual for revenue. And then you should get some type of cash control statement. That's gonna show you, there's a really nice one. It's one page. It says beginning, in, out, and balance. And I'd highly recommend that. So then you look across your row, you look at that sewer fund, and it will tell you what your balance is.
You were saying something about the one bill being paid late, $300,000. Is that obviously was this project
It
out
was
here?
related to the Blue Earth County. Yep. That's
Okay. So when did we receive that bill?
It was earlier on in 2020. August.
Wow, the county never sent a second bill?
They didn't say a word.
Yikes.
Apparently they're sitting on more money than they need, I guess. Yeah, we talked about that at the mid-year.
Yep.
Maybe the county did. I don't know. I think eventually they did, and then the realization was made that you hadn't made the payment, and then you went ahead and made the payment.
So yeah, you have to take that money and pull that back into the business year 2021, right?
I did. Yep. But the cash was actually paid in, the expense was in 20, the cash was paid in 21. And that's why at the end of the year, your sewer fund looked fine at the end of 2020, but in 21, obviously, when you're making that big payment, it just drove it right into the hole.
Because that's 400 and
Pretty big swing.
$480,000. Yep.
Paying close to half.
$500,000, yeah.
Yep. All right, so that covers the recommendations. The rest of the slides deal with the financials. And honestly, outside of the sewer fund being short on cash, financials look pretty good. That's one thing that's always nice to hear when we come out here. We get through all the nitty gritty, the compliance, the internal controls, talk finances. I think you guys are doing a pretty darn good job. So we move over to slide number 9. And briefly summarize some of the highlights as I see them this year. So if you don't take anything else away, maybe just kind of focus on these 3 bulleted highlights. So the first one there, obviously, your general fund was under budget by not quite $21,000. Darn good. Your fund balance in the general fund has been very stable. So you guys have had a lot of expense over the past few years with the DMI work, with the county work, all that you're doing to improve your utilities. The general fund's held steady. And honestly, the general fund has financed the majority of that work through transfers, through loans, things of that nature. So certainly a good thing. And then your water and sewer funds both had positive cash flow for the year. So overall, everywhere we touch with the city, things are doing well financially. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the details on these finances. So slide 10. Won't spend a lot of time here, but this just a graphical representation of your cash balances over the last 5 years. And as I see it, you guys have had some really good trends from 17 all the way through to 2020. You did see a decrease in some of your cash balances. Unfortunately, that had to do with some of those large expenses. The work that we've already talked about, that $500,000 came right off the top there. All right, so honestly, no alarm bells necessarily. I know you guys are somewhat debt adverse. You'd rather pay it out with cash. And that makes sense, especially when you're not getting very, very little on your investment accounts. And now the borrowing costs are starting to creep back up. So if there is other work that needs to be done, it's going to cost you more if you do have to go out and bond. But as the way I see it, your cash balances are in really good shape. Slide 11 kind of describes those a little bit better in that table on slide 10. Slide 11 describes the way that your cash balances are situated around the financial markets. That top row, demand deposits, that's just a fancy term for checking account. The next one down is your investments. So you can see that the governmental activities, think your general fund holds the bulk of your investments. And then the table below that is days of cash. We talk about this every year. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. But I told you guys you had what, 1.32 million in cash and investments at the end of last year. And it sounds like an awful lot, and it is. But if I were to tell you that City of Mankato has 20 million in cash, sounds like a heck of a lot more. But how much is that really? How much is 1.32 million to Good Thunder? Well, this table attempts to answer that question. How much is it? And so what we do is we take your year-end cash balances and we divide those by your average annual expenses. We multiply by 365. So what that does, it takes those year-end balances. How long could you operate under your average annual conditions? So if we just focus in on the row for 2021 for your government activities, again, general fund, 483 days. That's a darn nice reserve. That's approximately 16 months. So what we see, as I travel around southern Minnesota for cities of your size and structure, we see cities typically right around 12 to 13 months worth of cash reserves. And this does include those investments as well. So you're definitely beating that benchmark. You guys have adequate reserves in that general. Take a look at those business type activities. You're doing even better. Although you did spend a fair amount of money this past year and you don't have as much in your utility funds at water and sewer, your reserve is bigger simply because your expenses are less. So 573 days is approximately 19 months worth of cash reserves. If you were to ask me my recommendation, I would say 6 to 9 months would be about right. Having more is definitely okay because darn well any work that needs to be done in these utility funds it can be quite costly. So as I see it, the reserves of the city are very healthy. I don't see any jumps here or there. I mean, your business type has decreased over the past 5 years, but not to the point where there needs to be any alarm bells on what's going All right, so moving on over to slide 12. I wouldn't be an auditor if I didn't talk about fund balance. So we have a slide on fund balance, and fund balance is important. And when you guys hear that term, it doesn't equate equally, or it's not a direct correlation, but think cash balance. Fund balance, cash balance, very, very similar. So really what I want to point out here is if we look at, it shows 5 years of your different fund balances. The important fund balance to make note of is what we call unassigned. It means there are no spending restrictions. That means the city council here has full discretionary control to use it however you want. The state auditor uses uses your unassigned fund balance as a measuring stick. Audit firms use it as a measuring stick. How healthy is that general fund? And what we do is we take that unassigned, we divide it by your budgets, and we come up with a percentage. The state auditor says cities really should have between 40 and 50% of their budget held in reserve, held that's unrestricted. Your audit firm, me, I think that's probably a little light. I would say probably about 70%. That seems to me a much better amount to have held in these reserves. So if we look at, you see a row that has a double underline and a percentage there. If we look at every one of those years listed from 17 forward, you guys have met that standard. You've at least had 70% in your unassigned fund balance.
Why do we have such a big jump from 2020 to 2021?
Yeah, good question. Okay, so there were some monies that we call assigned, were held for some other type of purpose. And those purposes were developed years ago. They are no longer tracked by the city. They're not something that the city is following up on. When we talked to management, there was no indication that these had been set for any one particular purpose. So because of that, and because there wasn't a designation made on those dollars, they went back to your unassigned bucket. All right, so your fund balance, if you look at that blue bar, that kind of stays mostly unchanged, that unassigned jump. Yeah, so good catch there, Robert, and that was really why. Now, I would recommend if you guys want to start earmarking for spending, whether it's capital, if you got I don't know what you would end up buying, a front end loader or a fire truck or something of that nature, that's certainly a good thing to consider. Because you do have enough unassigned fund balance to carry you forward and not cause any issues with the general fund.
So if we would have made the sewer fund solvent in the year 2021, that would have changed that number quite a little, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. That's why that looks so good.
Yep.
But we have that other one running in the red, might as well say.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a great thing to key in on, of course. So some of that money really should be sliding over to that sewer fund. So your fund balances probably look a little bit better than they ought to, but certainly not to the point where we're going to see an issue with those, honestly. Because what I'm seeing here, you've got stability in your overall general fund, and then unassigned has significant amount in there. So
because in other words, to cover that $136,000, just to use an easy figure, we should have transferred $150,000 out of the general into the sewer.
Yep.
And that would have changed this whole thing here.
of course,
How much percentage do you think that would have changed? We're at 155%. Would that went down to 100?
oh, man, you must think I'm pretty good at math, huh? It would not have brought you below 100, I can tell you that.
Okay.
So if we're looking at your budgets are right around 500,000, a little over.
Yeah.
You've got 800,000 unassigned. We pull out, let's just make it easy. We'll say you got 700,000 left. Yeah, you'd be sitting at about 125%,
Okay.
give or take
So we've still been
20%, but
really good above that threshold.
oh yeah, you guys will be. Got no concerns there. All right, so keep moving on here. Slide 13 is your budget for the general fund. Great results, honestly. I got nothing but good things to say about this. So we'll just real briefly look at that top section for revenues. That's money that the city's brought in. You can see your budget for revenues. You can see actual there. If we look at the row that represents total, you're over budget in your revenues by $172,000. It's a great problem to have. Easily explainable. So you guys received that ARPA money that we already talked about $31,000. You can't budget for something you didn't know you were getting. So that does make sense. or at least you can't budget for something you don't know what dollar amount you're gonna receive. The other larger variance there was some road aid that was received by the city in 21. About $18,000. They call it city assistance for road aid. That money is not being received in 22. But I heard there is a bill at the legislature right now that they're looking to try to make that a permanent funding source. So cities under 5,000 population should be able to look forward to, hopefully in 23 and beyond, a dedicated funding source for your road maintenance. And then the biggest component there is, if you look at that row that represents charges or services, you can see you're over by $95,000. That's a little surprising to me. That's all your township money. You know, you guys receive, I would say 95,000 every one given year, but you do receive a significant money from the townships. So it's a little surprising that there isn't a budget for that. You know, so again, it's a good problem to have. You're over budget, but I think you could have probably whittled that down. At least you get a good revenue budget, then you can better, and you can trust it, then you can better predict how much money you're going to have to create your expenditures or allow you to make expenditures. Okay, so again, you know, these are critiques. They're nothing that is, you know, completely sideways. If we look at the next section below that under expenditures, I only got good things to say about this. Let's go all the way down the third underline, that row that represents total expenditures. You can see your budget, you can see actual, you guys came in about 21,000 below that. You know, so even though you over received revenues, you did not overspend on your disbursements. So the two kind of work in tandem. So you have more money coming in, you spent less money. You guys saw a very, very nice increase there of $200,000. 180 of that was sent over to the sewer fund to help out the sewer fund. You know, so I don't suspect that the general fund is going to see a $200,000 profit annually, simply because the ARPA is not going to come in every year and some of these other things. But that's really good. Those are excellent results. And that's how you guys are able to finance a lot of the work that's going on around town, is that your general fund is operating as well as it is. So kudos to everybody. And then finally, we got two more slides. I've been at this for a while, so I'm not gonna drag on too much more, I promise. So every year I struggle with communicating results for your enterprise funds, your water and your sewer and that refuse, and how best to display that, what's vitally important to councils, what do they need to know, what's all the extra they don't. So I've kind of ginned it down to these two slides, slide 14 and 15. So what you see on slide 14 is simply a representation of your profit and loss, every one of those utility funds. All right, so the water, sewer, and refuse. If you see the bars going towards the top of the page, that's a profit. If they go down to the bottom of the page, that's a loss. So as I look at this, you can see the water fund had 2 out of 3 years where there was a profit. Your sewer fund had a really bad year in 2019, and then followed up with some fairly good years thereafter. As you're well aware, the sewer fund paid off their debt back in, I believe it was 17. So you've seen some pretty good profits. No major outlays that aren't accompanied by some kind of adjusting entry. So your refuse fund, it does look like we're missing a bar on that one. We are not. That one's just kind of riding the rails there, just keeping its head above water. So that's your profit and loss. Profit and loss is important. The state looks at that. Your audit firm looks at that, but it's not the most important. You cannot take profit to the bank and pay your bills. You pay your bills with cash. All right, and that's what I'd like the council to keep on. So if we move, kind of fall over to, I don't know if they're on the same page for you guys, they are on me, but slide number 15 is a better representation of how well are you cash flowing. All right, so profit, we do a lot of things, audit firms, those 39 journal entries that I mentioned, we record certain things, depreciation being one. That's not a check the city's writing. That's a charge to your profit, but it's not a check. It doesn't come out of your bank. This operating cash flow tries to capture what's going on with those utility funds from a cash basis. So operating cash flow, I'll just quickly describe that. That is the money that's left after you collect all the bills from your customers and pay all of the vendors and all of the supplies that are necessary to deliver that service. What is left? If there's anything positive, anything left, it's called cash flow. So all your different utility funds, again, if you see those bars heading to the top of the page, you've made money. on your core activity. If they go below, you have not. You know, so if you look at the water fund, your operating cash flow is actually really good. It looks a heck of a lot better than what your profit and loss would make you believe. All right. The sewer fund is fairly consistent overall. You did have a bad year. There was a lot of repair and maintenance, followed up by some other good years. Your refuse fund, although it's kind of teetering on the profit and loss standpoint, all 3 years there, well, 2 out of the 3 years you did have profit. So, and there's a reason that this is important. This free cash flow allows you guys to make repairs to your utility systems. You know, allows you to repair and replace infrastructure. When you set your rates that you're going to charge customers, you want to contemplate how much excess do we need? You're not trying to just break even. You need excess. You can continue to build that net position so then you can perform the work that you guys have been doing over the past few years. So you gain it over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It usually goes out the door within a couple. You have something. So as I see this, I think your utility rates are in actually pretty good shape. The refuse fund, I'd like you to maybe continue to monitor. You know, you've had some up and down years. You want to make sure that you're at least breaking even. That's not an activity that you need to make money. You just want to break even.
I suppose our cleanup days, when we buy 2 or 3 dump trucks or garbage trucks, you know, because people are billed for it, but we're providing that service to the town. So that's where that little discrepancy would come from there probably.
Yeah.
What the heck is the cleanup days cost, Tom? $7,000, $8,000 is it?
Yeah.
I think, now Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, or where are you recording those cleanup day expenses?
I think we have a line, a spring
In
cleaning
the
line.
general, or is it in the refuse?
I couldn't tell you for sure. I'd have to
Because,
look.
yeah,
think
I
it's in
just
the-
had this conversation earlier tonight. You know, another refuse fund was kind of teetering and actually has a deficit. And they felt that they were recording those cleanup day costs to the refuse. But my question is, if you're not, or my contention is, if you're not billing your residents for that, it doesn't belong in the refuse fund. You know, if it's just a city service, you know, quality of life kind of thing.
That's what it is.
Junk, put that in the general fund.
Okay.
Why have it drag the refuse down? And I know it predated Ashley's time here with the city. I don't know if it was Cheryl or Heather, but I know we had that discussion at one point saying, okay, if you're not gonna bill it, don't put it in the refuse. Get that in the general.
Because it just draws it
It's
down.
just gonna drag it down, absolutely, because there's nothing to replace it. Eventually, then you have to move money from the general into the refuse regardless. So let's just put it where you're gonna finance it, low rate.
You got a lot of graphs and charts, but if you had to say, what does the sewer fund generate in one business year without taking anything out? You know, for the charges of sewer, the contingencies, what kind of cash does that generate in 12-month period?
It's generating anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000.
Okay,
Not quite 60.
because there for a while, we had a $62,000 or $65,000 payment that, you know, we were making.
For the PFA.
Yep, we were doing that fine all the time. And, you know, I thought once that was paid, we'd be generating, you know, you said in 17 we had it paid for?
I think that's when it was.
So, you
Last
know,
payment was made in 19, because I was here when the last meeting.
For the PFA, yeah, maybe a time.
but anyway, we have 3 or 4 years at 60,000, you know, you would have had, you know, 160,000 at 4,
Should,
you know?
yeah, you know, but you did, now, didn't you guys go through with some extensive televising? Was that
Yep.
part of some of those big
Lining and television.
Absolutely, yep.
televised? That is not cheap. Lining those sewer lines is not cheap. So, you know, it makes sense. It seems like you should have more resources in that sewer fund, but you guys have, you know, and I
Spending that
support that.
60,000 every year, kind of,
I
aren't we?
think
Oh,
we
yeah.
kind of are, absolutely. And then some, especially these last 2 years, you got about $500,000 that went out the door.
And Tom,
But it's important.
he found it a year or 2 ago that we were
Not solvent.
not solvent, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're upside down.
yeah. So,
I'd agree.
I think you mentioned before, our water rates were super low to qualify for like state projects, but we're looking like we're doing okay on water.
Mhm.
But if we wanted to bond for state projects, I thought you said we'd have to double our water rates.
Well, you have done some increases over the past, gosh, I don't
Just
know.
a real small one.
Yeah, it's been smaller, but what you want to do, and that's always a concern that I would have, some of the, you know, if you were to go look for a rural development grant or PFA funding, you know, certain things are out of your control. They are gonna look at your per capita income for the city. And that dictates an awful lot about how much grant versus loan you're gonna have, which seems kind of weird. So let's say your per capita income, and you'd probably be surprised how high it is. And we've got some other rural towns that it's higher than they ever imagined. But if you end up in that bucket, you're gonna have to take on more loans. Well, if your rates aren't set adequately where you can repay that debt, they add more loan on top of it. So they reduce your grant even more, which seems so counterintuitive, but that's a lot of times what happens. So we've got some small rural cities that are going through extensive projects. If you have something in mind, I don't know if the engineer's kind of been talking to you guys about any of that. Borrowing costs are going up. You know, the state, I'm sure you guys have all heard, they got about $10 billion they don't know what to do with. And they're willing to get it out to communities that have a need to improve your water infrastructure, improve your sewer infrastructure, whatever it may be.
So they just look at what's in that fund. They don't look like at the whole condition the town is in?
It depends.
Uh.
So it depends. Now, if you were going with pure government grants or pure government borrowing, whether, like I said, the USDA, rural development, or PFA, they're going to look at that utility solely.
Oh,
If you
really?
have to sell a bond on the open market, all bets are off. So now they're going to likely make you get a rating. They could very well, they're going to dig into everything. They'll look at your budgets. Actually, you'll have to sit through a 2-hour, 3-hour phone call with the rating people and answer all kinds of questions. Yeah, so they would dig much deeper.
So if we needed a bunch of work done in our water treatment plant, right now would be the time to get in and.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
You guys work with Bolton Mink, is that right? Or,
Yeah.
yep. It's Travis or.
Yeah, Jeff.
And when can we
Don't ask.
increase like garbage rates? Because we just had a tipping rate increase, and when can we apply for an increase on?
Anytime you want.
anytime?
Yeah,
I just
most
don't know.
cities do it annually, you know, at the end of the year, and then they apply it to that first billing in January. But yeah, if you need to raise rates, you really honestly need to do it.
The answer to your question is, spring cleanup is in the general fund. It's not the.
Good. Yep, that's where I think it should be.
Do you know what the interest rate is for borrowing? Like if we had to do a general bond?
Well, a year ago, we had a city in Faribault County, small one, huge project, $5-6 million. They were able to borrow money at 1.8%. It was backed by USDA. I've heard recently that that's up at least 1%. The 3% range now. And it's only going north, you know, darn well. But what's good, I don't know if you guys track kind of the financial markets, or at least are aware of that, you know, the appetite for government debt is also going up. So when there's inflationary pressure, the appetite for government debt increases. So that tends to try to keep those bond rates down. Yep. So I don't think you're going to see it, you know, I certainly don't go willing, you know, panic and say, yeah, if we got a project, we need to go now. But if there's something that you know you're going to need, and you're looking at a 5-year time horizon on something like that, it certainly wouldn't be a bad idea to get moving in that direction. Talk with your engineer. And this is kind of, again, counterintuitive, but the projects that get funded a lot of times are the big ones.
Yeah.
You know, they're not willing to do a 200, 300, $1 million. They want the 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 million projects.
But when they're looking at us, I mean, we have
It's-
money
Yeah.
where a lot of these cities are
Yeah.
flatlined.
Yep.
Or
In the
below.
mouth. Yeah.
And that's.
And they would require a contribution from the city. So if you did go down that route and you knew that you had your treatment plant needed some work, and whatever the price tag would be, depending on who you would end up applying for funding from, there's a likelihood they'll say, okay, we need to see a local contribution. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like say, I mean, and it's good, we do have money, I mean, that's not bad about it, but it's just trying to get free money is
That's
a
the
problem.
That's the key, you know, free money or very, very low interest rate loans.
Right.
We don't show the need as much as other cities might.
Yeah, and you guys have done a great job with your infrastructure. You're willing to go outline these pipes. You're willing to be proactive, where some cities, they just, honestly, they bury their head in the sand and they don't want to hear about it until it becomes a $10 million project. And
Yeah.
those can hurt. Because those rates got to get increased to cover some of those payments, and it's not fun. But if there is a need, now might be the time to at least investigate if there's opportunities for you guys. I'm certain your engineer would be happy to do some of that for you.
With the payroll being off, have we been fined by the state or the federal at all?
Yes. Yes, on both accounts. So, and obviously when I put in the report that there were some payroll deposit issues, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was underpaid. There were multiple instances where it was overpaid significantly. And then there was refunds issued to the city. What I think the takeaway here is there's a lot of inaccuracy going on with what should be deposited, when it should be deposited. Now, again, I will agree it has improved. But these are some repeat findings. This is something that's gone on over the past 18 months.
Do you know the fines?
And when we see them, we do. Yep. It all comes out, and you make that payment, they issue a fine, it all ends up in those financial statements. It all ends up in the bills that you guys should see and approve.
I was gonna ask where they show up, because I just don't remember seeing those.
They're not going to show up separately. So the payment will be made to the IRS, the payment will be made to Minnesota Revenue. Wherever inside of that payment, a portion of that constitutes a penalty if it was underpaid. Now, again, there were times where it was overpaid. And I don't know if you guys saw, there is some miscellaneous revenue that came back through. That was a return of too much money.
That was a
also
question we had. Yeah.
Yep. So there was some of that as well. So again, it's not on one side of the coin or the other. There should be better control. There should be better oversight on that.
Is that done by Banyan?
What do you mean? The payments? No.
Deduction?
But the determination of how much to deposit, yes, that is determined by the system.
So how can it overpay? You've only really got 2 full-time, 2 part-time. There should be a formula in there that it should never overpay, should it?
You send the state to the Fed and the Fed to the state.
That happened, yeah. And that's one of the issues. And then you deal with the IRS. And again, in all fairness, the IRS is not communicating promptly with anybody right now. So if you make a mistake on a deposit or a payment, you're not going to know about it for 6 to 12 months, weeks. They're a little bit better on the payroll tax side of things. Income tax, you're waiting months and months and months. So in all fairness, there is some of that. There's those delays. And then you notice it, you try to make a correction, it goes through, then you get another notice and it can just snowball. But again, it's not that difficult to make those payments, to know when they should be made. Put down, a cheat sheet. Here's what I got to do. The system calculates the amounts, but the system does not pay those.
Right.
That has to be manually done.
You do that over the phone, right?
No,
Nope. It's all online. Yeah, you can. I know Cheryl used to years ago, make those payments by phone. They do not accept checks. It's mostly automated now.
It's just, if you do it over the phone, it's just electronically taken out of your bank account.
Yep.
Would that be a better way for us to do it?
I wouldn't want to do it that way. It's easy enough to log in. So the city has a login for the IRS. You have a login for the state of Minnesota. You go in there, you got to pay sales tax for your refuse fund and your commercial water anyway. So those have to be done monthly, to make those withholding deposits. Just got to be part of the process. I think the city, and that's when I mentioned the internal controls, have these written policies that here is my responsibility at the end of the month prior to the council meeting, all the tax withholdings need to be.
Is the sales tax done correctly?
To the best of our knowledge, yes.
Okay. How is that calculated? That's, you said on the garbage. So
There's solid waste tax and some other tax that goes on your refuse, and then your commercial water, which I don't think there's too many accounts here, but your commercial water has the general rate sales tax. Sales tax can be a mess too, by the way. There's multiple different rates for multiple different purposes. Blue Earth County has a transit tax as well. That's an extra 0.5% you got to tack on to everything. So the best that we can tell that was done properly.
okay.
Do we know For sure. Was it collected from the customer?
Doesn't matter. That's the
I know,
problem.
but do we know, for you, it doesn't matter for an audit.
No.
but-
No, to the state, it doesn't matter.
No,
They
I
don't
know,
care.
but-
They say, hey, you deliver that service, whether your people pay you or not, you owe the entirety of it. So I would assume, yeah, of course, there's got to be some amounts that aren't being collected by the customers, for sure.
I just don't remember seeing that either. We're gonna have two meetings.
Oh,
a
you
month
mean-
that We're gonna,
Billed to the customers?
yeah.
I believe it does. I believe it does. And if it's not, you should incorporate that in your rate structure. I mean, the commercial water is pretty minor, but on the, you're seeing much larger. I want to say it's in the 7 to 8% range on your solid waste tax. So it's a much
Yeah,
higher percentage.
it's much higher.
Yep.
All right.
So the last slide I have there is slide, I don't know which one is 16, I believe. That's your audit team. So I know when you guys hear that the auditor's showing up, I'm sure you're all just overjoyed to have to sit and listen to me talk for a long time. That's my only joke, by the way, so you got laughed at. But I do enjoy this part of my job. I'm coming out here and, this is all I do is look at financials, look at compliance, look at internal controls. It's a sliver of what your responsibilities are. So it's a difficult task. And if I can make that any easier for the city, I'd be very happy to. So my contact information is on that slide. Your entire audit team is there. So if there's something that you ever feel that we could help with, advice, you name it. I know you guys aren't shy. You've had me come in past meetings. Be happy to do that. So please reach out. I keep in fairly close contact with Ashley throughout the year, and I offer that same connection with anyone on the council as well. And if you want, one final thing, we've been kind of in a groove here doing these mid-year audits. I did bring a contract. I don't want to be presumptuous, but if you guys are interested in moving forward with that again, we'd be very happy to perform that service.
Absolutely.
I've left copies with Ashley, no price increase, just gonna go with the same that we had last year.
Well, since you're here and I see your name on the Small Cities Development Program, we got a little bit of an issue here. I don't know, have you seen?
I emailed you about it and you emailed me back.
Oh,
So
Your opinion.
we had to
Take a minute to look at that, see what we can do to rectify the situation there, maybe. I don't know if we can. I'm reading what the lawyer says. I don't know.
Right. Yep, I do remember this. So what is, and then Chris had some comments. Yeah, sounds like he concurs with my thoughts. Is that kind of what I'm gathering here? Okay, I would agree. Yeah, and I don't know, because we don't audit 22 and we do the 21 audit. But it sounds like that SCDP money is extinguished, right, or exhausted. So there's nothing remaining. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep. So I think what Chris said is kind of what my thoughts as well. He just said it a lot better than I did. You have to make sure that you're making these disbursements under what we call public purpose, lawful public purpose. All right, so lawful public purpose, you guys do not have an EDA. You cannot give money to a nonprofit, a charity, an individual, regardless of whether that is inappropriate, I guess I'm tripping on my words here, but whether or not the intentions are sound, you can't do that. All right, so I think Chris kind of clarified that point that I made as well. So options, I know you guys have kicked around the thought about maybe establishing an EDA. So if you were to go forward with that, that would give you options as far as what you're allowed to do how you're allowed to assist cities, how you're allowed, or businesses, individuals, things of that nature. You can set up a grant program for people to rehab their houses. That's really kind of what we're looking at, so.
We made, a decision as a full council based on the information that was before us. So it basically boils down to an error that we
seems like
made. I mean,
it's kind of what it seems like.
we didn't dig deep enough. We didn't look far enough. And the information that we were given by clerk, what we were really seeing wasn't all there. So we just made a decision based on the information we had, so how do we fix that now?
Did you read Chris's letter? Because he said the information that we got was correct. We had $1,100 some available. We allocated that money. And then it was exhausted.
Correct.
Right.
But we voted on all of this utilizing the applications and whatnot that were before us. And they were incorrect, as it turned out. We didn't know that. Nobody knew that. So how do we fix that?
It's a great question.
I mean,
What was incorrect, the amount? Or,
the scope of project. And what else was, there was pages missing anyway that we didn't see.
well, that was about taxes and stuff.
So what we should have, if we'd have had that, though, see, we would have made a different decision. So it's just an error. It was just not there,
That's what it seems like, yeah.
And so how do we fix
I
that?
guess I'm a little. Okay, so we're putting the audit together. There were proceeds from another
Yes,
sale. Was it in the $20,000 range?
That had to be paid off because they were moving.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
That
yes.
happened in 21.
yes.
And you're saying as of now,
There-
April,
There's nothing in there. We spent the remaining amount.
from
As far as I
January,
know, yep. I can
you
look
have
at
your
What did we
cash
spend
control
in this
statement up?
year?
I guess
What did we spend this year on?
We didn't on this year, it was all last year.
Yeah.
there was a balance.
It was like $180 is all the balance was. It's mentioned in the letter.
Okay.
In Chris's letter.
well, if the individual had to pay off their loan because they sold their house before the amount of time.
You mind if I grab that audit report? I just want to look at, I got the amounts in there.
There should be more funds there.
I thought there was two by now, but I could be wrong, This isn't my job either.
I got a lot of numbers.
And honestly, regardless if there is funds in there, and I'm gonna speak freely about it, you approved the receipts that were submitted for that dollar amount. You didn't
Yeah,
approve 5,000, up to 5,000 could have been approved, but we approved what was there. So whether there was funds again or not, I mean, doesn't really, like, not to be rude, but it doesn't really matter. You approved a set amount. All applications were for up to
So when you
$5,000.
reported this to Chris, you hadn't put our adjustments in, right? Because I'm showing a balance of $23,000.
That's what I thought.
Maybe not, I don't know. Well, no, because you sent me the adjustments, so I don't have them yet.
So in other words, that account is solid. So we,
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's in here somewhere else. I
Because
just
you
seen
said,
it.
yeah. So there was.
It's in what you
collected
sent
money.
us to, what's in the reporting that you sent us.
So I'm curious why, yeah, and I guess,
There must have been another sale in 21 then, because this money came from 20.
I don't care where. it
There was
comes from, it's there now,
$25,000.
so, You know,
there was
That's-
still money remaining.
small cities thing has been ongoing for a number of years.
Yes,
right?
you've received money in
Yeah.
20, you received money in 21.
Yeah.
I don't have the 20 here in front of me.
And year to date, what I have, but it doesn't have your adjusting interest in there. What I have year to date is 282.30 is all that's in there, but the adjustments aren't in there. So
Yeah.
let me show that.
but the adjustments are in yours.
Yep, and we just got that today.
I-
So when I put them in.
Yeah.
To me,
Right,
like there's
right.
cash.
Right.
Yeah, you got 23,000 at the end. And so that was what I'm a little confused. You certainly didn't burn through that first few months of this
No.
year.
No,
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 no.
that's exactly right.
So it kind of throws you for a loop a little bit. But I think it's a good conversation to have. You need to consider public purpose. What are we allowed to do? Now, most cities don't have the authority to provide these housing rehab type grants. you're allowed to do that, kind of riding the dovetail or, kind of dovetailing with the SCDP, Minnesota deed. Gave you some money, said, hey, if you guys receive this back, they call it program income. You can redisperse it under the same kind of conditions. We've talked about this. I know you and I spent a lot of time talking about this back and forth. If this was other funds, you can allocate other funds to do that outside of an EDA, Economic Development Authority.
Here's, right here, this line item, right, small city revolving and the cash balance summary that we received here for this meeting.
Mhm.
It's right there, 23,
say?
just what you got.
It does? There you go. You guys have enough money.
Well,
There's
yeah,
282.
it's in there. I don't know either way, I'm just saying if it was solvent, how, there's no way
Totally.
it was approved for a certain dollar amount, so.
There's
I don't
282
care.
received this month,
Well, who was the individual we signed off on and how much was
right? I mean, it's there.
last?
That's why I was a little confused, because I know that you received another bit of money in 21, and I thought, how the heck?
So that last year, somebody signed off,
It was like 24,000.
have to pay that
There was
back.
carryover in
Yeah.
20. Yep.
So there should be a track of who's paid that back.
Yeah, I can pull up the file. I think it was, might have been Woods's maybe. I know they moved out of town, so this.
It
Big
was
chunk of money.
Woods's.
Yeah.
But you gotta be careful now. I don't want to add more wrinkle to it, but if you receive over 38,000 in any one 12-month period. So I would suggest talking with Judd, because you guys are probably getting pretty darn close. You had 25 and you had some in 19, you had a big one in 20 and then another big one in 21. So depending on the 12-month cycle there, and it's this, I think it's the federal government's fiscal year, October 1 through September 30. You have to report that to Minnesota deed.
Okay.
And there's some requirements there. So if you want to talk with Judd, he can set you straight and give you the right requirements.
And the best thing would be to have MVAD redistribute the funds.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're the ones that take all, so it keeps it away from your.
Because they write the scope,
Haven't-
they do all the qualifications.
Exactly. They look to see that everyone's income qualified. They check to make sure that these were appropriate disbursements, the improvements were made. The only thing I would caution the council on is conflicts of interest. All right, so that's huge. And that's one thing that I was concerned about this last go around was that there are no interest in contracts between the council who is granting these or approving these grants versus anyone that might have interest on the other end, whether it's your own property or your own business, things of that nature, we got to be very careful with. Because regardless of whether this grant ended, you still have to follow those stipulations.
So that is, whoever that individual is that give that money back to satisfy that loan.
Yep.
Was that when they sold the house, did the county pay that back to the small cities? How in the heck did you get?
There's a lien on the property. So when the title company does their thing, you always pay money, you sell a house, the title companies, they research. And so when they did the SCDP loan, they put a lien on that property.
10-year lane.
10-year lien, yep, and it's ratably forgiven over those 10 years, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, however long.
It's
you are.
actually not, it's into full effect. If you go 9 years, 364
They
days,
take the
it's
whole
the
damn
full
thing.
amount. Yes.
Okay,
So
well,
how did that money get transferred back into that small cities then? Through Blue Earth County or
through
did
the state of
somebody?
Minnesota. So it's attached to your jurisdiction, your numbers or whatever, and when they pay that, it goes to Minnesota deed and then it gets redispersed back down to the city.
Okay, so come right back into that original fund that we had
Yep.
set up.
Yep.
Okay. So the person in question here is the individual sitting next to you, Greg, that's in this letter. So now, how do we handle that? Because I think his words were that night, we'll make it work, or you remember what you said,
What
Tom?
I said was that we voted as a council, whole council voted to grant him this. And that we shouldn't back out of it.
Right,
And now especially seeing that apparently Kennedy got the incorrect information as to our fund balance. I mean, that's where this all began apparently.
We're saying you should check with Judd and make sure that this is here.
We exhausted
It's
that
there.
fund
I
balance,
can tell
so
you.
this is a
mean,
money
It's there,
stuck into
But
that
the
fund.
only thing you gotta worry about, however this was approved, it was approved. I'm not gonna get deep in the weeds on that end. You guys have $23,000 sitting
So we are solvent right now.
Yes.
As long as it says that there, we are good.
And whether or not you approved it previously, you could make another action tonight to approve it right now. You know, I think that's, again, the council has that discretion. I wouldn't suggest just moving in those kind of, you don't want to sway in the wind in that regard. I think you take every project, every application and apply the criteria. All right, if you do otherwise, you're going to create some issues in town and you're going to have some of the problems that came up this last go around. So I would suggest you want to get Kennedy involved, have him develop criteria that you're going to use to evaluate each and every applicant, each and every project that comes through.
Well, we
I
know
think-
what we're gonna do this time, next
And
time.
you have to be very, very careful. I think I would like to see the city have strict conflict of interest policies so that we know who is allowed to apply, who isn't allowed to apply, what is the conflict of interest. Let's delineate that, run the whole gamut.
Well, I think Todd mentioned that he was gonna go get some more windows. So if it says up to $5,000, that's what we can do, right? If it was $5,200, you can't do that, right? If you,
Well, based on what you're telling me, that sounds reasonable, but I'm not an attorney. I can tell you how much is in that balance. I can tell you how much is in that fund that was collected, that is available for the city to work under those provisions.
I think I'd revisit the minutes from that meeting because we approved what was left in the account at that time, that $1,100 and some dollars.
If I could speak, that isn't, I just listened to it earlier today. What was approved was I was gonna get paid up to the $5,000 on total. As soon as I turned over invoices.
Well, and the invoice you brought me to is a quote anyways, so if you bring me the paid invoice and the money's in there, we'll pay.
No, I
it.
was
It's not
paid
big.
that day. I just gave you the one copy. I didn't give you the other one.
We need an
The one you
I don't
invoice.
need your arguments out of this. Trouble with it. Anyways,
That's not required. She said she needs an invoice, not an estimate.
that was paid.
You,
It
It
says,
says, or date ordered, they're ordered.
I'm just saying, it's not an invoice.
Oh my God, I'm not gonna run off with money.
you gotta have an
Have a pay.
invoice.
We learned a lot here.
I wrote the
We're
check,
not
for
paying
God's
a-
sakes, and I'm not a thief.
I'm not saying you are.
So you've been leaning the whole time.
So
The whole time I've talked for 2 seconds.
we gotta have the invoice for whatever the remainder is right now, up to 5,000. Is that still gonna be how we wanna do this or what? I mean, I'm lost.
well, because, okay, so, and like I said, I don't care. This is a quote.
It says date ordered on there, doesn't it?
It
The other one might have
Does
been,
not have
I
a
might have
receipt
handed
that
you.
says
Oh,
paid. I'm
that's,
just,
It's not a paid
I'm
invoice.
just saying, that is how.
We have to have
If
invoices to
that's
pay
the
it.
case, if we're gonna revisit everybody's up to, I submitted $75,000 in work. I got, I think, 1,100. Are we gonna go back and everyone else that didn't get that full amount go back? I don't care either way, but we have to be equal with everybody.
Well, how does that fall in conflict of interest there? When the city employees getting the money?
That's,
I don't vote on it.
yeah, she's right.
And Kennedy told us that when I came down to
As
it.
long as she doesn't have any say in how that contract's awarded or approving any of those actions, and it's not a conflict. No different than if her husband did some work for the city and you guys approved a contract with him. Yeah, but now if one of you worked for the city and had a contract, then that does become a conflict because you have the ability to sway that decision. So that's how we want to be very careful there. And that's why I think just having criteria, having enumerated criteria so that you can just apply it, so that it doesn't feel like you're picking favorites.
Is this,
I agree that you shouldn't reimburse anything without a paid invoice. That's pretty clear and pretty common.
okay, so, is this an ongoing thing now again? Since we have money back in there now again, can we make this public? That,
No, we need to check with Judd first.
I would.
I'd let Jed run all the money. I wouldn't even touch it again
And
after all.
you know what? There's other cities, like Crystal being one of them, that has a third party that administers their grant program. And I don't think Judd's involved with it, but there is somebody, it was, I'm drawing a blank on his name. He administered certain different other grants. That's a great way to do it. That would open it up to other members of the council if they were so inclined to go forward with it. You know, if you take that away from your decision making, then you can apply for those type of grants.
I think that'd be a better route because then there wouldn't be any implied bias or anything.
Exactly.
Sure, after I got my roof shingled.
I agree. It just gets you out of the dirty business of picking those winners and losers, you know,
Yeah.
you get more applications than you have money for. Now what do? It's a small town, people talk. You know, and then you've got to live with the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
If you can put that out, and when that big program came through, that was back in 2014, 15, whatever it was. SCDP ran it all, or MVAC ran the whole thing. They ran the entirety of it. So they interviewed, they income qualified everybody, and they said, yes, these are qualified, let's go forward. It just gets nasty, again, unless you set up an EDA, bring in some business owners to sit on that board and start making some of these decisions. And then they bring their recommendation to the council, you rubber stamp and out the door you go.
We talked about an EDA probably a year ago, and we have yet to this date done anything, and we really need to set up an EDA. Does it need to be for residential, or can it be for commercial, or can it be combined?
Anything you want it to be. You just gotta follow those laws. You know, you gotta publish notice, you gotta approve, whatever. Chris could give you the information you need.
Well, you were both, I think you and Chris were both here that time. That was probably 6 months ago in reality.
We have a packet.
We have a packet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were here 2 years ago when we first talked about it. We revisited it a year ago. I brought the packet a couple months ago, and it says where to start, determine a purpose, how much we want to put into it, and then start the process.
Yep.
So with that funds that we have that is making it no money, would it be better to take just, no, not quote me, but take 250,000 and put in that EDA? So you could help out businesses in town
It would give you some options.
to make the town grow, to help out?
It would give you options. You have much more latitude under the umbrella of an EDA, where you don't have to worry as much about public purpose. Those shackles are kind of taken off of the EDA, where you can grant to businesses, residential. You can provide some more of that, that funding, really, that support.
Could you use the ARPA money?
Sure could. Yep. And that was one of the provisions of the CRF from last year, 2020. You guys were able to do business grants.
All right, well, we got some things straightened out and some things that are a little bit foggy yet.
I think I'd ask for Chris's opinion on it though, before we decide.
Yeah, I mean,
It was exhausted and now there's no more money, but he might say it's exhausted.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
well, would that third party be the individual that would be keeping track of the funds? So this would never put us in this predicament again?
They could. Now, Farrell County, we do a lot of work out there. They've got a group tied with the county that helps small communities monitor, manage, and administer their EDAs. It is a fee for service sort of a thing, but they come in, they keep track of the revolving loan funds. And that's one thing I would suggest, instead of granting all of this money, because that never comes back.
Right.
Start a revolving loan fund.
Yeah, right.
So that if somebody were thinking about setting up shop in town, there would be a pool of resources for them. And EDA would get the applications, let's not talk about some of the loans that came through from Blue Earth County where you guys sort of were the co-signer on those, but that's a similar process where you could evaluate those business plans, the EDA would rather loan it out and hopefully obviously get that return with interest to grow that revolving loan fund.
Who did you say that was that could do this?
There's a lot of times there's some people with the county. I would reach out to the county administrator and see if they have some resources for small cities that are looking at going down that road. There is a county EDA. You could always, move applicants that direction and maybe get some support going that way. If you want more control, you want more say in what's going on, then you would need your own EDA.
We're involved with the county right now with a $42,000 loan that's no money's come in for 18 months.
Just thank goodness that county hasn't asked for their money back.
And the county doesn't,
They don't care.
they said, well, we've never had this,
I 100% agree.
they've never had a business that hasn't paid the bill. They're either closed or they pay the bill. Well, how do you get involved with them some more when we're already in trouble with this?
I know.
I mean, we'll have to pay off that $22,000 of debt somewhere along the line.
Let's hope not, but
Well, if you
It's-
haven't paid in
you're on the hook for
18
it.
months,
it's in your audit report. You absolutely are on the hook for that. There is a delinquency there.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I don't think there's gonna be any more repayment. It's all a matter of, does the county want to press the city to repay it?
Well, how long would I mean, who has to act first, county or the city?
The county.
Okay,
They
so,
would have to enforce the contract and say, hey, time to pay up. But here's the thing, the county, the money that the county got, it wasn't their own money. They received it from the state. So it's not, I don't think it's a high priority item for them. You know, this money came, I think it was Minnesota Deed yet again, and said, we want daycares, we want these targeted businesses, and we want to help them, you know, become solvent and get off the ground.
well, yeah, you take 22,000 on the countywide, that isn't gonna end up to be $1 a person.
Yeah.
But in Good Thunder, for us to pay that off, it's about $100 per water meter, and no, it's not going on your water bill. But that's how you can figure it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it would cost each individual in this town to pay for that debt.
That's probably why the county isn't pressing, would be my guess.
Yeah, but how long do you let that go?
I don't know.
We've reached out to Bob several times and he's just, they're not interested until the business is.
Well, the time I went down there, and met with him, he wanted to know if you just didn't get any money for 6 months. I said, I already haven't paid it. So it's just sunken ship. It just doesn't,
Yeah,
it's just not over.
yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well, and the county said that the city has an agreement with that business. The county doesn't have an agreement with that business. is
Yes,
what- is what
agreed.
they said, so. So it's up to the city to do anything. If we're gonna take them to court, it's up to us.
We learned a lot on that too.
So when time to pay that debt off, Greg, does that just come out of the general?
I have to.
Hmm. We learned that one other time with the car wash years ago, same thing.
Yeah, and, you know, if you get into that type of activity, it doesn't come without risk. That's what you gotta be, that's why you have to, again, clear guidelines, clear criteria, and apply it.
Well, you know what? We learned a lot out of the last one because the financial statement that we've seen there was nothing.
Yeah.
It's fabricated by Blue Earth County, basically.
Well,
Again, we made a decision based on the papers we had in front of us.
and we went with Blue Earth County. Blue Earth County was kind of the ones that were ahead of this, handing out this money. They didn't dig into it deep enough. And again, it won't cost taxpayers of this county 50 cents to pay that debt off.
Yeah.
But the rest in the city, it'll cost X amount of dollars. So anyhow, well, I guess any other questions for Greg on the audit? If not, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yep, and do you have that paper? You want to take that back tonight and sign it for your renewed contract?
Oh, I left it with Ashley. You certainly can if you'd like.
Do you want, he signs it or me?
Well, if you're gonna sign it, I'd like council to authorize her to do so.
You can
Otherwise,
sign it, I don't care.
Do you want to take and make a motion to renew our contract with Greg?
I will.
Okay,
Second,
all in favor, say aye.
All right.
I oppose, motion carried.
Save the stamp, you know.
yeah, of course.
Yep.
There we go.
Thank you.
And again, thank you,
You're
Greg.
welcome.
All right, we can move on. Fire department. March, they had 10 calls. Anybody questions on that? Not move on to Blue Earth County Sheriff.
On the fire departments thing. They are requesting the city approve funds for them to redo. Remove and replace the flooring in the meeting room, kitchen and all that stuff. I talked with Greg about it. We can approve it, but we need numbers and it needs to go for budget for next year, because I didn't submit any of it for the budget of this year, so it's not, none of this work is budgeted.
Who did you talk to?
Correct.
And
So by July, I talked to Phil, by July, they're supposed to give me their budget for the year for coming up. Never happens. Greg says it's all fire departments, so, but they want to do this work, but it's not budgeted in there for,
do they have an idea what it costs is?
I don't know, didn't give me anything besides a request for approval to do the work. So I mean, unless they're paying out of their gambling fund, I'm not sure.
They've got 40,000 in future improvements, but their roof's coming up too, right? I've been talking about that for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it could be 20 years from now, but yeah, there is a roof coming up. I'm just trying to think through this here, what, you know, what they're going to do, of course, is pay us a contribution back, like they've always done.
We'd still need a budget number though, wouldn't we? To know if it's 1,000 or 20,000.
Well, I don't disclaim that,
Right.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that'd be a great idea if we knew that. Because then we would know, you know, what, the thing is, they can't
Spend their money.
spend that kind of money out of their fund that they control.
They can donate to the city.
They can donate it to the city.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, they can't donate, you know, if the bill comes to $17,120, they can't donate $17,120. They have
They
to
can
donate
donate 10,000
something,
or
yeah,
something.
something else, yeah. Yeah, there should be a budget number, and from what we've been learning, it's a public building, there should be quotes.
Yeah, they're gonna have to put it out for quotes and make sure the insurance information, license information, all that's in place.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a public building.
And what did you say about that, Tom?
It needs to be quoted.
Especially if it's going up to 25,000, like the letter he just gave us. If it's under that, you probably could get by with just 2 quotes, but if it's 25,000 or over, it's gotta go out to.
Yeah, I think, I mean, even under it should be quoted, you know, for this. I mean, this is no emergency.
Yeah, should I try to get a hold of Phil and see if he's got it, or if this was the discussion maybe they were having, and then they're going to, once it's approved, get those quotes?
Yeah, I don't think you need to call him now, but.
Well, no, not right now.
No, right,
Like,
yeah.
This week, get in
Yeah,
touch and
yeah,
get some more
just
information.
Tell him we need some quotes.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's been done. Any repairs,
That's how you buy anything. That's how fire trucks get bought and everything, you know what I mean? You just can't, you know, not do it.
they can't spend it out of their funds, but we can pay for it.
Yeah.
Donate it back. All right.
We haven't heard anything as a new rescue vehicle up or anything. Is that being considered out there for your plan? Cause.
I
About that.
thought there was a mention of a new truck, and I don't,
That's something you'd have to ask Phil, I suppose.
Out of your pay grade too?
That is
Mine
out of
too.
mine. Yep. Out of mine.
I'm just curious because we budgeted for that pumper for 3 years. I
Right.
just didn't want to have something pop up and go, oh, we want a new truck next year.
So did you get that we're kind of overcharging the townships? Is that what I understood from
I
him?
was trying to remember, didn't we get billed late or something? Didn't we get billed an extra?
Did we have 2 cycles?
When the previous clerk was here, it was something didn't get billed at all.
yeah, because we bill every 6 months now. Phil comes in, we go line by line for all our stuff and bill it out, and then,
There was
I
a year
think-
that wasn't billed.
yeah, there was,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
That makes
So
sense.
you had 2 cycles of payments in 1 year.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it was so much more.
All right.
Maybe let Greg know that.
Okay, anything else under fire chat?
I think we should mention that there's gonna be the pancake breakfast on the 24th. That's
Yeah,
a big deal.
yeah.
First time in a couple of years.
Anything else, Ashley, then under, do
No, that's okay,
Okay.
sorry.
you want to mention that then, Sarah?
Yes. Make sure it gets so they, it's in the minutes for the paper or whatever that. It says that Sunday, April 24th from 9 to 1, the Good Thunder Pancake Breakfast is on again. I'm assuming with Dick's Locker sausages, so. Good times.
Support
The
local.
one at the church was very well attended
Was it?
a couple weeks ago. Couple weekends.
People, we need that stuff again.
You
know?
really want to go out.
Yep.
And there was one that morning. And they still came here too.
Pancakes for breakfast.
Wow.
All right, moving on, Blue Earth County Sheriff, we had 55 hours of patrol. some of the calls for service were multiple suspicious circumstance, harassment, disturbance, multiple assist, fire and ambulance. Any other questions for Ashley? Anything to add?
Nope.
All right.
Seen them nice and early.
City maintenance zoning permits, got two of them, GT 22 and 322. Questions on those? Meet this, everything that we asked of them. Yeah.
Everything looks good.
No, are they replacing the garage?
No, they just
Like in
be,
between.
The breezeway between there.
Way between?
I'm gonna do a mudroom between the two.
and I don't know, I can't remember, does he have the fence on there as well?
think so.
Front deck garage for privacy fence.
Oh, yeah.
So that, I located 2 of the 5 pins on that property. And unfortunately, I couldn't find some corner pins. So I told him, before you put that up, it says in our ordinances that you have to have written permission if you're gonna put it on the line from surrounding residents.
Right.
And I said, I'm not, I can locate these pins and say, yes, that is in fact a property pin, but if one's disturbed like this one over here was, I can't tell you that that's.
My neighbor used to move mine all the time.
And I'm not saying that's what happened over
Until I
here,
bought the
but
property.
It's laying flat rather than actually staked into the ground. So I said, that's something where you need Bolton Rink or there's a surveyor down in Fairmont that'll, do that and come in and survey it.
When what do we do for they can't put the fence on the property line anymore, right?
Unless,
Like a,
Up to.
was that?
Yeah, we encourage them to stay off it a little bit so they can maintain it.
Yeah.
Because if you have a bad neighbor that won't let you clean.
Maintain it,
paint,
yeah, take the
Whatever.
panel off or whatever.
So we talked to someone else about saying 2 feet off.
Okay.
They can go up 2.
Yep, I believe that's how it's handwritten in that ordinance book that I have is 2 feet.
Okay.
So it's kind of, at some point that got discussed.
any further questions on the zoning permits? If not, somebody make a motion to pass the two. Someone second,
Sarah and Ron.
I got it.
Either or, we wanna do that.
who seconded it?
One of us.
Well, one of
Okay.
us.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay. We'll take it from here, Jake.
Was as long as we're on that last zoning permit with the fence, the tree that has been on Main Street for 200 years, the giant oak tree that shades basically Main Street over here in front of that individual's house. He's interested in getting that removed. I told him I would talk to the council about it. I talked to Chad with Blue Earth County, and Blue Earth County will cost share over $1,000 for that tree to be removed. Which I haven't gotten quotes yet because I wanted to come to the council and see if you guys are interested. You can see
It's on the boulevard.
Well, it's the one that's pushing out the curb and the
Yeah.
sidewalk and
For
everything.
30 years.
Yeah,
I think they wanted us to do that a few years ago. We said no. They had to
They always
do
said
it.
if it's live, it's theirs. If it's dead, it's ours, right?
Yeah.
probably a $3,000 tree too.
Yeah,
Probably.
it's gonna cost quite a bit of money, and like I said, I haven't even gotten quotes on it yet. I just wanted to talk to you guys about it.
The county would do it if they were doing that road project though, because they'd have to take it down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, yeah,
Yeah. So technically,
'Cause
it's
there's-
our tree,
because they're still talking.
because it's in the boulevard.
Yep.
And I remember somebody who lived there before wanted us to do it because it was pushing the sidewalk up and we said no, but I think it's probably gotten out of hand and probably caused more damage to the sidewalk and it's gonna keep doing it.
Well,
Well, that is a big tree though,
It
holy
is-
crap.
Yep,
it's gonna be a costly tree to get rid of, I'll guarantee you that.
But is the county still looking at doing it from the road from here to,
Not in the
So-
next 5 years, I don't think.
but I mean, then that would be in the project then.
Yeah.
But they're willing to do 1,000 towards it?
Up over 1,000.
over 1,000, they're gonna cost share with the city.
Oh, so let the city pick up the first 1,000.
Yep. And
Oh,
So if it costs 3,000, we'll both pay 1,500
Yeah.
bucks. There you go.
it's, I mean, we all sitting here looking at that tree.
at least 3.
Yep,
How does it work when you have a tree like that big taken out? That's a hole, right?
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, who gets the wood? I mean,
The
there's gotta be some
vendor,
value
the
there,
vendor is supposed to take the wood with them.
but
So like,
I mean, there's value to that.
I get that. The vendor
Yeah.
is supposed to take it with them.
Okay.
And if they don't, then we should decide as a council who would get it, I suppose.
Well, I mean, there's
'Cause we
gotta be
can't
the
have a
sawhouse, you know, for boards and.
Well, yeah, there's value to that wood for sure,
Yeah.
especially.
Only in the bottom trunk, the rest is all too crooked.
Well,
But still.
It's firewood except for maybe 20 feet of it, 15.
all timber has value.
Price of
so-
wood now.
I say, we don't know a price really. I mean, they're up to, it could be a $4,000 takedown.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, it's not gonna be, but I mean,
It's going to be over 1,000.
Yeah,
Hands down, it's going to be over 1,000. Cause
And
you
if
gotta
you-
factor in grinding that stump up too, and that's a 4-foot diameter tree.
Yeah.
we did a black walnut and it was $3,000 in between our houses. a Couple of years.
I'd call
ago.
Gar up and just see if,
Yeah, I.
what it's gonna cost.
And I'm gonna get some more. If you guys are interested, I'm willing to get quotes.
Well, I'd get quotes before we make a motion on this thing.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
There'll be no value to them because they're just gonna cut it down.
Yeah, well, then you have a power line that runs directly through the center of that tree as well. So I would think
XL would probably
XL
have
would
to
have to be on.
Just get some quotes and we'll
Yeah.
look at it another time.
There's probably gonna be some sidewalk project related to that then too, because you're gonna have to fix something there.
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you recall when Ben was here, we were kind of talking about that? He said that of the city he used to live in, they'd do like that and then they'd put it on his taxes. He said he'd be fine with that. So if that's a conversation to maybe have with him, maybe the county takes a third, we take a third, he takes a third, and it goes on his taxes to remove the tree that way.
No.
But then this is-
get some prices on it and we can go from there.
Okay.
We'll talk.
Yeah, we could work out that deal too.
It's not, yeah, right. I mean, it's not like we gotta do it today.
Right.
But at least to have
It's
that
still,
deal
it ain't falling down.
possibility. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
We have a tree in our boulevard that we planted a lot, we got permission from the city a long time ago. But now we're concerned, you probably see it, it's right at the end of our, or right by our driveway.
Okay.
It's in that little thing and they change things. Can we cut that down ourselves? Can we get permission from the city? Because we're worried that it's gonna cause a gas line issue or sidewalk issue or curb
You
issue.
got permission to cut it down last fall. Yes,
Did I?
you and Stacy asked.
Oh,
Go ahead and chop her off.
okay.
Just don't get hurt.
Well, no. I just don't want it to wreck the sidewalk or, any of that stuff. And I think it grew a lot faster than anybody expected, so we just didn't want to, I don't remember getting permission. God, I'm getting old. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So you guys asked me in the last council meeting to look into the letter and bills that we got from the resident that had sewer issues in 2019. I didn't include it over the weekend because it was a lot of digging. Now, in 2019, the city of Good Thunder wasn't even a thought for me other than living here. So I had to look back at all this and, read through it and talk to the individual, see what kind of all went on here. To me, it kind of got handled strangely, but once again, I wasn't here, so I can't actually say for sure because I wasn't really a part of it up until now. In total, there's $1,532.12 total there between water bill that was requested to be shut off in January of 2021 for $176.41. Again, I was not here at that time, but in our ordinances, it states the utilities shall be turned off under abandoned services 50.24. Section B, the utilities shall be turned off at the curb shut off box, and the charges for utilities shall cease, provided all utility rents, penalties, and other charges under the public works title are paid. Now, looking back at that bill, the individual was paid up, had requested multiple times to have that water shut off because they were not living in the home. It never got taken care of. That to me, my opinion, which whether that matters or not, I think that bill should be reimbursed. Given the fact that it was inquired about multiple times
To be shut off.
to be shut off. Yep. And looking at that ordinance there,
So if they asked, that was $176, is that per quarter or is that what one bill was?
that's what it was for that quarter.
Okay.
So 176.
Did it sell then after that, or did it get shut off after that?
I don't know. I think
Somebody's living there, so
now somebody's living there. And I think that would have been the January to April bill in 2021. So I don't know when that property sold, I guess. I was told at the time that bill would have been active. No one was living there. Once again, that's what I'm being told. I wasn't here at the time, so take it for what it's worth. Now, when we get into all the sewer charges that they had in the basement, I dug up a thumb drive in my office that has video of that line. That service comes out of that house, if we're all on the same page here, and dumps into the main. That's probably the closest service we have in town. It goes from house to main because the house is touching the alleyway.
right.
So the problem there in that video, as stated by the individual running the camera who is employed by Jetter Clean, is that the problem was in our main, which was causing the sewer to back up into that basement, which in turn caused damage to a bunch of personal belongings, as you guys read in the letter, if you remember that, stuff that I told her that I'm sorry, but obviously there's no price that you can put to these items. But there is a price to what happened next, which was getting Jetter Clean to come in, which we did compensate for 2 of those bills. But there's still one for $319 that Jetter Clean had to come in to camera and jet that line. And in all their billing statements, they state that they're into the city main, which of course they are because it's right next to the house.
Did our letter say that we had a crushed piece of pipe?
It was crushed, and you can see it on the video too. There's dirt or grease or.
Did we ever have that dug up and fixed?
No, and I called around to ask that, and
I didn't remember that, so.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't remember any of that.
it got jetted, and we haven't heard about it since.
And
Because they've
jutted
jutted
the blacktop alley, so when we do that, then the blacktop alley will be bad.
Because they've jetted that alley several times since then.
Yeah,
Restaurant grease.
and I've had it jetted once already for that reason, just precautionary, making sure that the grease doesn't back anybody up. So with that being said, the $319 Jetter Clean bill, and then you have 2 bills here from Caduce. One for $145 to come out after hours and place a sump pump in. Sounds like there was a lot of melting going on at the time. And then another bill from Caduce for $891.71. I guess the way I seen that without being in the basement was if the floor drains weren't plugged on the main end, probably would have taken some of that water. Once again, you asked me to look into it. I looked into it, and this is what I found. I found that we did pay a small portion of it. I looked into that water bill portion. The problem is I wasn't here for any of it, so it's hard for me to give you guys a better idea.
Like I say, it could almost be where the foundation leaked if it was thawing. And
We talked about there was so much snow piled on the bell tower lot that she was getting some running that way. Was there usage on that water bill? The quarter she asked for it to be shut off, was there any usage?
Yeah, it's like 72 cubic feet.
76 cubic feet.
So they're using it a little bit, flush toilets when they're visiting or whatever. I'm just asking.
Something, and then I know it claims in the letter as well that all the new plumbing is put in. And then it kind of resorts to the meters that we've installed, give faulty readings. We could go down a lot of rabbit holes on this, is what it seems like to me. I guess these are the numbers. What would you guys like to do with them?
About $1,355, was it?
$1,532.12.
Oh, I better miss that other one.
Oh, that was the total of the
That's, yep.
water bill, the
Water.
Caduce bills. Okay,
And I believe both Jetter Clean bills that we already compensated for were both right around $300.
Recap. The cause, as you understand it, possibly is the bad pipe in the main.
Yes.
Okay, and we've never fixed it.
Well,
Not,
everything else drains good. I mean,
The restaurants,
other than grease being in the main, that's the main problem on that line, as far as I know, that I've heard.
But I mean, there is video evidence that there is a problem with the pipe.
There's a manhole in that center of that alley.
Yep. Well, that, yeah,
on the
that,
street, just feet away from the apron.
Yeah, but that ain't, is that the sanitary there? Or is that the storm?
yeah, no, it's sanitary.
So that does go that way.
nope,
Okay.
90s, and
Which way do the restaurants go?
it comes and flows east.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
I think she'd get a lot of flow in there if the bar and restaurant were continually pumping it. She would have got lots
So
of.
that comes to that center main, then that goes south down through the alley.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, the
Well, the restaurant goes south.
restaurant comes up to the,
Center there and
The center of
goes
the-
south in that alley.
of the alley and then it goes south.
Okay.
Yep.
So that house is,
That's, that's the new main.
that house is the only one that goes east.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I knew that one for the bar goes straight south.
Yeah. And then car wash probably goes into the hard, I don't know where that got hooked into, sure. That might have got hooked down that line, but
Well, obviously, we have a crushed main.
We got something wrong anyway, yeah.
but nothing's happened
sometime-
since then.
Sometime in the future,
We have to dig
this
her up.
individual's gonna have a problem too.
Yeah.
So we might have to destroy our blacktop alley
Well-
and get it fixed.
Yeah.
We'll televise it first, see what's going on, yeah.
And it's underneath the apron,
Yeah, if we can get
which we just replaced.
a footage of there where
Yeah.
it's gotta be dug and stuff.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I think that's what we should do too, is that we should, I agree, re-televise it. Make sure we have current information and go from there. If it's bad, we should fix it.
How about?
Right, and then
Money.
they're getting, we'll know at that time if that was the problem or not,
Yeah,
when we dig it.
We almost gotta televise before you make a decision, because we really don't know what.
That's what I mean. So we gotta start acting on that. Do televise it. And if it, whatever, and then, but once you dig down there, then you know for sure.
get a new televisor
Where it is.
next week or two, Jake, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
then we'll know what to do. Tell the individual we're still working
Yep.
on it.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
Appreciate all your digging in on it too.
Because we'll need to know for the new couple living there, because if there's a problem,
Oh, no, right. We'll have to fix it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, no problem. Yep.
And that shut off is right in the alley, so you could have shut it off. It's sticking up this high.
Yeah, it's very, very visible. Oh. I believe I put in my daily logs that the filter pump across the street would cost more than what the estimate was for. And I got off the phone with Aaron Butler, Ian Well, and he was having some issues with Crane Manufacturing, who he was going to get the pump through. I had to dig around and find how much head feet we would need and gallons per minute. And luckily, we still have the plans from 1941 when that building was made. So we found that information and the ball is rolling now. We're getting our mechanical sealed pump, centrifugal drive, and the motor that is capable to run off that VSD over there for the amount that was quoted for 800. So excuse that typo, and I found that out after I had sent it in on Friday. So, but of course, like everything else, that is 10 weeks out.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
fingers crossed that it does not fail. The new alarm down at the lagoons is up and running. Luke's Electric and Hawk Alarm came in a very timely fashion and got that put in right away. So that's a nice system to have down there set up, and has the numbers, cell phone numbers logged into it that it's needed, and everything's functioning good. It's running off of the high level float. And then any power loss that we have down there, it will alert everybody on the call list and let us know what's going on down there. So it'll be kind of nice. We won't have to be looking for a light anymore. Should get a call before that light goes off. I guess the last thing I have on here is the property down at the dump. I know I spoke to you guys in August or September last year about, I put signs up just for the fact of the liability of all the four-wheeler trails that we have down there and the wood that was being cut. As of a couple weeks ago, going down there to check the brush pile in the morning, I noticed that there was another large tree that had been fallen in the woods. With that, we're not really getting rid of that liability that we have when people are going down there and dropping 60-foot dead elms.
So somebody cut that tree down?
Yes.
Somebody actually just asked me about that.
Yeah.
They said they went down there to take some brush and they said there was a big tree cut down. And then they said it was like cut in sections.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were asking if we were cleaning that up and I'm like, I don't think so. They're like, well, I think somebody's cutting trees down there. So I was gonna ask you about that tonight, now that you say that.
Yep, so that's the second one, I guess, in the last 6 months. I don't know what you guys want to do here, if anything, if you just want me to keep kind of reporting in and fingers crossed that none of these trees drop backwards on the individual that's cutting them. I've talked to 2 individuals that I've seen down there with saws, and I thought the talks went well enough. I kept a level head. I didn't, I just said, it's posted, you can't be down here logging. I mean, if people were taking trees off the brush pile, taking them home and cutting them up,
Yeah, because they've done that before.
that's a different story, but that's not what's going on down there.
They're dropping trees.
Yeah, yep.
Well, whether people believe it or not, timber has value, so it's timber theft.
Well,
It's
yeah,
city property,
well,
Yeah,
just
that's city property.
so maybe we need to call the county, the sheriff's department,
okay.
don't you think?
Well, we could let them know just that when they're in town, they could run down that way once in a while anyway.
If you
just
have
to-
individuals that you think are doing that, maybe the sheriff's department can let them know that there's, issues with that, I guess.
Yeah,
You can't just go cutting trees down. I mean,
no, and to my knowledge, the individuals that I talked to haven't been down there since.
okay,
I don't, because it was a big break there. It was last fall and then now, so there's a big break in there. I just see it honestly as a liability.
Yeah.
And a big one at
Is
that.
it theft?
It is theft.
yeah, it's timber theft.
It is theft.
I have a license number for you, because I happened to take some brush down there and we could go Saturday night, around 5:36, whatever it was. I just had a little bit of it in my driveway and I took it down there and yep, I seen 3 individuals that were carrying wood to the back of this green pickup.
Okay.
And one lives within a stone's throw from here. So, I mean, what does the city want to do to pursue this? Of
I'd give the
course, it's
license,
my word against their word. so.
I'd give the license number to the sheriff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we've always
That's what we
said
got him for.
yeah.
before, like if, we took some branches and a couple logs down, put in the burn pile. And it wasn't like actively burning, people would go and take that.
Yeah.
And that's fine because it makes less of a pile for you to burn down,
Yeah,
but
it's less.
I mean, I would think the DNR would have an issue with them cutting trees down by the river in the first place.
I would think so.
There might be an issue there.
Yeah,
And the bigger picture here,
is the
we
injury.
don't want to ruin the burn pile.
No, we don't.
That's such a good,
Yep, asset.
thing for the citizens of Good Thunder. We don't want anything to happen. down there.
Right. That whole area down there, the brush area and the
Yeah,
weeds
that
and
whole thing.
compost.
We want to keep that, so. But that all had to be hauled to Mankato or Mapleton, that'd be a great disservice for the
Yeah.
citizens.
You'd have to use that, or you'd have to hire, could you even put it down there and then have a individual grind it all on the spot?
I don't know if you can or not, It's been going and
It's
is going and
Yeah.
we don't want to
Crazy.
ruin it.
Well, I guess I'll keep an eye on it and
But yeah, get a hold of the
Yeah.
deputies.
next time I see the sheriffs or I can call. I got a couple of cards up there, so I
You
can,
should call it in because then there's
okay,
Yeah, documentation.
you should call it in.
I will do that.
All right.
That's Friday, April 22nd at 8:30 AM, I will be up in Blue Earth County shop in Mankato for safety training day. Safety meeting. So something that Ashley and I discussed last week, I believe it was. I'm not sure on an end time, but I'm sure it'll be, sounds like there's lunch, so after lunch or something like that, I should be back in town. But I believe that's a Friday. Yeah. That's where I'll be that morning into the afternoon. And that's all I got for you guys.
Street sweeper working all right?
Yep. Got the new broom in there and just fighting that the conveyor, getting the conveyor leveled out.
Can you still take street sweeping this down for cover, Tom, or not?
So far,
So if Jake wanted to haul some of them down there, that'd be fine.
What about like the compost? Simmons is, it's a no-go just because people dump so many sticks and I got cinder blocks and all this stuff. So those 3 compost.
Or plumb full.
Yeah,
Can they go to the dump too?
yeah, I was wondering if I could bring those down as well. And it'd make good cover. It's just got sticks and miscellaneous.
you better let me check on that.
Okay. But the street sweepings,
Yeah,
they still,
we're currently taking, yeah. I
Okay.
think that's gonna go away, but yeah.
okay,
You gotta weigh them though each trip, right? See how much you take down there.
Yeah, because they keep track of everything that goes in.
Yeah.
okay.
So the facility that used to be Full Circle doesn't want that stuff right now because it's got too many sticks in it.
They were just very picky on, sticks and rocks.
So after we get it cleaned out, I mean, I'm trying to remember the signage down there. Is it separate like leaves?
It's all in a pile.
There's just one big sign down there and then
Okay,
I guess I moved it, so it looks composted, but it's just so mixed.
yeah. I mean, maybe we can think about trying to make it mark better so we can get rid of some of that to them, but
Really, we should, you're right.
Yeah,
nobody's, the thing is you don't want to be checking it all the time and but people should just use it the way it's supposed to so we can keep it.
yeah.
But maybe if we get it marked more in the future.
And try that. I mean, we gotta try it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
It's
just
a good
takes,
thing. We just don't wanna.
Well, and it's nice if we can just go
Right.
out to Fitzsimmons.
yeah, that's very close and convenient.
But if they rake the lawn and there's twigs in it, and you got 90% leaves and you got some twigs, they don't want anything, right?
I mean, if it's a small twig, but some of these sticks,
Right.
1-inch
So-
sticks or, the wood chips that I brought out had tiny pebbles in them and you'd scoop a handful out of a 5-gallon pail and you could have 5 pebbles. And I said, well, I suppose there's 4 or 5 little dump truck loads and they said, we're not interested.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
It is what it is and have to just deal with it and, yep.
All right.
yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Flushing, Jake?
What?
Hydrant flushing?
Oh, yeah, everybody should have got something in their water bill that I will be flushing the fire hydrants the end of this week, the Good Friday.
All right, city clerk.
So the water main break from 344 Main, we sent out the letter to that resident, have not heard anything back. For the total,
Oh, yeah.
for the half of the total due. And I sent just the ordinance that went with it and everything like that, haven't heard anything back from them. The conference that I was at for a week was pretty awesome. I did budget 101 and budget 202. Kind of more budget prep stuff, a lot of the finance classes is what I kind of tried to go to, because I thought that'd be more beneficial. And then just mileage reimbursement for.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we reimburse that mileage.
So move.
Someone's, all in favor, say aye.
I-
Opposed, motion carried. Didn't get a cleanup. When is cleanup days? May or June?
11, I think. They haven't sent me out any of the pricing or anything, so
think I
I just
saw
put
that.
a blotter out. It's this day. More information to come. It's gonna be down at the ballpark again. They're gonna have the trucks. So you're gonna have to bring your stuff down there. They don't know if they're gonna do dumpsters. If they do them, it'll be for the larger appliances and not for just people to throw stuff in. So then I don't know if when that does happen, it is a Saturday, if you want someone down there again, I think Brian was down there the last year we had
Yeah,
it.
Jake will have to be down there for that.
Okay. So that's
Otherwise,
June
it'll just-
11th?
June 11th, yeah, and they'll set hours, so I'm sure it'll be till 1 or something, it won't be.
Yeah.
Yep, June 11th. You put that out a while ago.
Usually you put a little note in the
Yep.
water bill like you did the cleanup or the hydrant flushing.
Yep, I'm gonna send out a postcard when I have those prices from them, just because then people ask how much is the TV. Last year, a postcard went out to everybody.
And then with that, somebody should go around and look at nuisance properties and make sure they get a nice big note that we are giving you an opportunity to throw away some stuff.
Sarah wants to do
Sure.
that.
I just get to ride in them side by side right now.
You know, I mean, the same thing, pick out and send them that,
Yeah.
where they got 30 days,
Mhm.
something to do it and make them aware that there's a cleanup day and stuff like that. So
So we should do this sooner, so they have more of a notice then.
Yeah,
And
Yep.
then maybe a follow-up one after the 30 days and just that June 11th.
we'll plan it ahead of time so I can be back in town
Okay.
to do it for like a half an hour.
yeah,
Next
But
week
it's-
with you,
Yeah, whatever.
so they can have ample time to prepare.
Yeah, the sooner we go, probably.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, community comment, anyone? Anybody up there? Watching on,
Nope, all still muted. I think they're
Interwebs.
all right,
What was decided about this? I could produce a paid invoice. That's not a problem. If I give you the quote. I had 2 of them that day. I had one
Yeah.
paid and I must have gave you the quote and took the other one home,
No.
which isn't a problem, but
Yeah.
am I being reimbursed or am I not?
Well, according to the attorney, I agree with Jim. I think we should get another opinion from him and make him aware that there is 23.
that there is money there and
In that account that hit that account. It looks like it hit in January.
And we're supposed to just verify it with Judd. Right? Judd Schultz? That we got
I-
that? I thought that's what Greg said.
I don't know. I was,
I mean, if it's guaranteed, if he says that money's there, then it's there. I mean,
what's there?
yeah.
It's there.
So it just,
Went into that account.
with the invoice that you're looking at now or whatever it isn't over the 5,000, right? Or-
Oh, yeah, actually it surpassed.
But I mean, you're gonna get,
I'll get up to the 5,000. I don't remember what the number was,
I think it was like-
2,000 something.
like 2,400 or something.
Yeah, the bills for like 40,
okay,
next 45, I don't
The
remember.
disturbing thing in Mr. Kennedy's letter, though, is this statement here that says. Hang on here.
amazing, you can read it and remember it, but when you go to look for it, you can't find it. Me too.
I'm always finding that. Help me remember. I feel like we did a disbursement once. And then we promised a second disbursement, but then we didn't have the funds, but then we did it anyways.
What disturbs me is that the issue at this time, whether the city can pay any additional amounts to Mr. Howard, there is no record that he qualified for the grant.
So it shouldn't
Got
have been,
written here.
or, yeah,
Yeah.
so it should have never been the first time, is what he's saying.
That's what he's saying. There's no record. He got funds in the grant program that he was entitled to for this.
Not on my part, though. I was only given 2 pages of apparently it was a 4 or 5 page application.
So that's what we gotta have. In my opinion, I think that's what you're aiming at too, is have Chris relook at this. again.
Reapply.
No, just give us his legal opinion.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
mean, and if, if you can reapply, great, that would be the easy thing to do.
You'd have to open that up that now there is money available to everyone, right? That's the way I kind of took it.
No,
I would like,
Not
I'd
going
turn
there.
over MVAC and see if they'll run
yeah,
it.
we're not going there.
Obviously, we don't know how to run it.
Yeah, we would probably have COG. Have the COG administer it or something, you know, so that.
We don't do a credit check and a tax check and all the things that we need to do.
Or everything that was on the original application,
Right.
right?
But if someone doesn't fill it out or doesn't give you full disclosure and you don't check up on it, you wouldn't know. And we didn't, we did, you just trust people.
Yeah.
So with that being written there, I would hate to, in my opinion, I would hate to like overturn his finding. I mean, that's a finding there.
We need to let him know of the new information we have
Yes, yes.
and just make sure. I agree.
So in the meantime, we're gonna wait, are we gonna find somebody to administrate this instead of the city from this
I would
point?
say the COG.
I think so too.
Are they any good?
Well, they do it all over. I mean, I don't know.
Well, in
Have they been out?
Judge,
They haven't been out, but I've been in contact with Jessica at least twice a week.
Yeah, but they haven't been out at all.
Not since our one meeting. But she said she can come out whenever, but we've been in contact a couple times a week.
Serious stuff on
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do need to have them out. I mean,
That was a reason
I agree.
yeah,
to have them.
right. I mean, I think the auditor's report proves that we need to have them out. I wish they were here tonight to listen to his report. It would have been very helpful.
Well, he also said that the
Yeah.
last 6 months were an improvement, so we have been
Right.
taking steps to improve. I just don't want us hanging up again on the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And try to, throw me on the bus, rake me under the coals over something we've already discussed. So we do have to listen to the other 6
Nobody,
months.
that's my point.
I
Want the COG to come.
yeah,
I want this to
Yes.
improve.
I
I
agree.
want this to happen.
I agree. But I have no problem. I can reach out to Kennedy tomorrow, get his advice. If you guys want to say that Kennedy says go ahead, then we can just issue Todd a check for the remaining, I think it was 27, I think when I just did the math, or $2,400. That's no big deal. It's a phone call.
But I'm not sure that would be right either. And that's what we want to make sure.
Yeah, we should probably get the opinion first.
Yeah, because we don't know for sure if that statement is true, that there's no record of his meeting the requirements. Where does that leave us? He's got to tell us that.
Mhm.
We got to know what to do next, boss.
But I say we reach out to MBAC and they see if they want to run our little grant program. Because we just divided up, hey, we got 20 grand, we'll do 4 or 5,000s, and
Yeah,
was that fair? Probably not, who knows,
well, we were working on the information that we were given. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah.
What do we know?
Right.
Won't do it again.
We got a lot of things we ain't supposed to do anymore.
Uh-huh.
So I guess at this point, Todd, we're gonna have to let our lawyer, get a hold of our lawyer and see what progresses forward.
Okay.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Todd, do you still want to drop off that big one? So we have it just so.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
All right, so that was under the clerk yet. That it for his clerk business? And we did community comment. I guess we kind of went back and forth here. Unfinished business. Rental letters, Kennedy being sending cease and desist letters, 3 property owners not in compliance. Just make aware of it.
One called me today on Main Street. He's got a rental, long-term rental, and he's been back and forth with them, trying to make some improvements. So they're just in the process. He did receive a letter, but he said, we're just plain phone tag and improvement tag. I'm like, yeah, as long as you're making steps, that's all we care
Yeah,
about.
great. Absolutely.
And I'll get in touch with him too, because he hasn't sent his paper back to us. Send your paper to the city and then deal with them, because then at least it's out of our hands and it's in the inspection side, so.
Yeah, he called me today kind of hot and I said, "Ooh, just chill out." Everyone got one that wasn't in compliance. We can't.
All right, SCPDP, we already probably pretty much talked about all that, right?
Yep.
So New business taxes on 530 Sherman. We should have never gotten a tax statement, right? We don't pay taxes.
The city pays tax because it's a residential property. It's
Yeah,
not taxes.
yeah.
It's a
Oh,
house.
yeah. How come
But
they did last year?
1,050 of it comes back, right back to us.
Yeah.
We did pay a portion of it last year. It was during the closing because they had paid it all. Protein Sources had paid it all, and then we paid it back at closing, part of the taxes.
Well, that brings us up to, what do you want to do with that house?
Sell
Sell
it,
it.
like sell the whole
I
property.
want to sell the whole property,
I
put
don't,
it back on tax roll.
I wanna sell the house and keep it as the well site.
I think we're in trouble because the statements that were made in this room, though, is that we bought that to build a gas station.
Well, that was the reason to even look at that property. That's true. And then when Brian said that'd be a great spot for a well, we all bid into that
Yeah.
and said, you know what? You're right. That would be a great spot.
Yeah, but the problem is that should have been engineered before we bought it. We're trying to back the horse up to a cart that should have never even happened.
Well, I thought,
We had it looked at
It was,
before we bought
it
it.
was never,
We had it looked at before we bought it.
it was engineered for the water well site for.
they engineered it after the fact, like 6
It
months
was,
later.
it was engineered 2 times.
They put some balloon dots on there and said it might fit here. And then they
Well,
found,
that's-
and then they found out that the lot was too narrow because the beacon measurement was wrong.
Yeah.
It was only 100, wasn't 140. So that first initial plot drawing was wrong. Then the 100-foot width, they decided, oh, we can use the street. But that was done after the fact. I just,
that-
what I
I
think
agree.
the problem is that it's been said in this room that we bought that so Robert could build a gas station. That's a conflict of interest and people are asking about that.
That's not a conflict of interest. That's economic development. We would not have a gas station had we not made some sort of movement there.
And again, Tom stated before, you want to really go against the town's largest real estate taxpayers' wishes to not have anybody live there? Is that what you really want to do?
You know, the residents pay, for every 10 residents, they pay the same tax what they pay. So we're just gonna say that 200 people paying taxes don't get a vote on what's going on in this town. We're just gonna take care of the biggest taxpayers.
Well,
Yeah, but what I was looking at is if we got a place within a block of our filter plant to put a well.
But we don't need a well,
Not
Why don't
right
we?
now, but you could next
why
year.
don't we?
because we've been told we don't need a well. Brian told us 100 times, we don't need a well, we need a filter plant. We need that taken care of.
But
That
I'm looking
well-
at the future. If
We
you,
could put tanks, like you said, we could put tanks up at the city shed. We put tanks anywhere.
you need a well,
Got to get it out of the ground
you
first.
gotta get it out of the ground.
Yeah,
And that could come right up the alley or up the street, right to the pump house, to the filter plant.
It costed like $65,000 to run that main from here down to
Not a water tower, a well.
a well.
Like, no, we could put tanks someplace for storage and make our storage twice the amount with above ground tanks. But that's
I'll never support tearing that house down and have an empty lot there. We talked, we supported if we could rent it and maybe pay the citizens back for a lot and then we use it in the future, but now we're just like, we're gonna tear it down and have a $55,000 empty lot.
and you were the one that said we shouldn't rent it. But that was the original. That was the
Actually, I
original.
said we should.
You said that we shouldn't.
No, I said we should. I said we'd have to put money into it. After we met with Jed, we said we'd have to put money and we'd have to update the siding and broken windows.
Yeah, you come with a figure of 30,000, so
We
you,
just, we didn't ever bid it. We just roughed a number,
Right.
you know? The thing, the way the market is right now, we could sell that house and make money. As it sits.
Are we, as a city, do we need to make money? Is that what we're here for? We're here for the betterment.
We're gonna give the money back to
We're here
the taxpayers who
supply
paid for that.
Water, sewer, roads, parks, and that kind of thing. We're not here to make money.
you gotta find another place for a well. I mean, you could be running water main for 5 blocks to get to there.
Yeah.
proposed tax, $1,700. Okay, I think the tax on my empty lot was, I don't think it was even $1,200. Do you want to know what the proposed tax is for it next year?
Probably a lot.
You don't want to know? It's 10 times what this is gonna pay. 10 times, right there.
I told
That
you.
new building, that new structure that's gonna serve the city is gonna pay 10 times more than what this is right here. Rest my case.
So we're gonna have an empty lot that doesn't pay anything and may never be developed into anything.
Well, the original well over there was probably put in 19, what did you say? Well, no, the water tower goes way back to what? Early 1900s.
Yeah,
So that's when that little original well was put in.
that's
the ground.
inside.
Yep.
Inside.
And they got that back up and running good.
And then,
Yeah, but for how long?
I mean, it pumps up to 100 gallons a minute.
I think we gotta start looking farther out than whether or not we can make $10,000. We gotta be looking at expanding the lagoon. Running some infrastructure up here to where we know that somebody is very interested in selling lots for houses. I'm not saying we're gonna be the developer, don't get me wrong. I don't wanna do that. I just mean though that, you know, I think that'll look that way. We're going to need more water, more well, hopefully more lagoon, you know?
The big well is what, 360 a minute?
In that area, probably 400,
So,
right in that area.
so with the combined ones, we only have 400 and. Do we make 450?
I mean, say the one inside goes bad, which, I mean, it can, I mean, that's only it's 2-inch pipe, I think, in there now.
Anymore.
One stuff down, yeah. right.
So I mean, that's done. Once that pipe goes, it's gone.
So we were gonna buy this house over here for market value of $30,000 if the well would fit there. But we found out that don't work either.
Right.
So
That would
we
have been
do the
ideal.
same thing right over there.
Yeah. We got it. I mean, I even thought about, maybe we could remodel it and we keep talking like the school would be something to put like little spots for little businesses and stuff like that. Make it so it's just business only. But it's the same problem, you know? It's so dilapidated that why fight that, you know? Get rid of it.
You look at it, it's very tough looking.
The house?
Yeah, look at the paint, look at the windows.
Well, yeah, the exterior is.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just gonna say, you know, when this whole thing went down, the conversations about never selling it to somebody because of the dust was never brought to our attention, to my attention until after the fact. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, it was brought to the attention immediately the next council meeting, because I said it.
yeah, but that was said to you. It wasn't said to full council. And that was after the decision was made.
well, that's why they bought it, so they could kind of control who lived there, so nobody could ever complain about hours of operations, you know, or the dust.
That could just be a disclosure statement in a property when you sell it. You know? So I'm just
You
saying
guys
that.
you
that
guys
was
think it's
never-
dilapidated, but that's a perfect candidate for a little tiny flip. I did one next door that was dilapidated. It should have been knocked down. That one's an easy flip. I've been inside that. It's decent
The
inside.
basement is, this has got a block basement, that has a limestone
This
basement.
block basement's
Crawl
caving in next
space.
door. They're gonna have to dig that whole basement up, waterproof it and fix it because it's caving in, always was.
Well, that isn't a waterproof.
No, I'm just saying, it's,
Yeah.
because it's blocked doesn't mean it's perfect.
Well, I mean, it's a 1956 house, probably, right in there. It was built the same time mine was, 1956. So that was built when?
No idea.
Probably 1900 something.
Yeah,
Mine was built in 1894.
yeah. But I mean,
Rock and mortar basement works just fine.
that
So that doesn't really.
That limestone basement crawl space, I mean, you know, there's nothing there. I mean,
I think we're getting away from I mean, it's still a perfect spot for a well. There ain't no getting around it. It just,
It
where else you gonna put one?
I thought it was determined.
And we might not see it, but 20, 30 years from now, you might need a well.
Use the street of Sherman because we control it to give it a spot where it can fit.
I mean, I thought it was somebody out there that was like, no, that property's only this. It was like marked wrong on there. Remember that?
That was at one time.
Yeah. So I thought we
When
couldn't.
the
do it
initial
there.
survey was done, it had the wrong dimensions on there.
Had the wrong dimensions on there.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
guys can vote whatever you want, but I will not support tearing that house down.
No, don't tear it down, put it up.
Move it, whatever. I won't support any of that. I will support us selling it and put it back in the market, but I will never support tearing it down, moving it off, whatever. Not gonna do it. Doesn't, I'm just one vote, so.
I'm 100% that we should sell the house whole and move it off.
To get in,
A lot.
to get into that, do you have to have a minimum bid, you know? I suppose you would, wouldn't you? Taking sealed bids, minimum bid of,
They're gonna have to split that house in half too, the house and the addition. They can't move it in one piece.
Well, that's not, it's just a matter of,
Well, and I'm just thinking it's gonna cost them, what, 15,000 to move it?
More. And they have to dig a ramp under the whole house basically to pull it out, you know, it's just like,
that'd be fine though, because then when you got done, you could get the rest of the rock out there and splayed off the lot and have it level.
Yeah,
You wouldn't have that like that. So,
I don't, I put a minimum in it.
Oh, I-
Just to get rid of
you
the,
probably have to, you better ask the lawyer. Public,
Huh?
you might have to have a minimum. It has to probably be sealed bids, advertised.
no, we gotta figure out how to do it, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
well, is that what we need to do is instruct Ashley to call the lawyers, see what we have to do. Do we have to have sealed bids? Do we have to have minimum bid to sell a piece of property? Is that how we would handle it?
yeah, the house, not the property.
The house, yes,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
correct. Somebody want to make a motion to that?
I think we need to decide if we're gonna sell it or not, otherwise why have her do it?
I don't know, I don't like seeing another property, a home, a residential property go.
And just so everybody's clear, there was no purchases made by anybody until after we talked about it here at council. You hadn't purchased your property from them yet. None of that had happened yet till we talked about it here in this room,
I don't know.
because
No,
you
the
didn't know.
The purchase agreement says though, that if we didn't buy it, they would not sell the property to him and he'd already started building on it. That's in the purchase agreement.
Correct. Correct.
But they had already built and dug and
I
excavated.
didn't have no building. I had a cement wall going up. Probably didn't have no. building.
No, yeah, but I mean, you footings and cement was in prior to that.
I
I
mean,
mean,
XL pole is in there until right at the very end,
yeah,
so.
so.
I will be a no.
I think we just gotta, we have to look forward. We gotta look forward here and not bicker about little tiny things here. Let's look forward and get something going in this town. I mean, I think we've kind of run the school thing to the end, you know, way it sounds, way it looks. We can't even do an RFP on it, you know. I mean, we've kind of run all that to the end. So let's move to the next and try to get something going. The accountant said here that our investments aren't doing us any good. We might as well put it in the ground.
Yeah.
He said it'll be there. That infrastructure will never go away, you know?
Give an opportunity for the town to grow.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's, you know, that was it $27, I think I've seen on there is what we made on that $790,000.
yeah, right.
right,
I mean, really?
Yeah.
So if we would take that money and run a water main out there and we could sell a dozen lots, of course, then that all falls back on the lagoon first.
Yeah, that's my point. We've
Yep.
got to be looking forward, you know? We can't be just always looking back and trying to cover our tracks and all of this stuff. Let's just move forward.
Well, and I did talk to the county. I think I failed to mention that last meeting about, you know, we are in the center of the county for their new building. As of that time, there was no choice yet for where they're gonna build it. I just made it available, you know, we are in the center of the county. Well, we need a lot of water. Well, there you go. You might need another well. Big well. You know, if something like that ever happened, yeah, you could put a silo up somewhere, you know.
But we're never going to grow if we don't do something, you know?
And again, taking that house and that $1,700 is I've already made that up. So you ain't losing any money. You're gaining
Yeah.
money.
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
That was the whole point. We all sat here and talked about all of this. That's why, you know,
So you could either gain the $1,000 that I had on a bear lot and the 1,700, or you could skip this 1,700 and I'll pay 17,000 next year. Let's see. How's that figure?
it's even a little more than I thought. Remember I told you,
I think right now it's figured at 16,000, but the value is not.
I understand.
So anyway, the city will not be backing up in tax revenue
No, heck,
at all.
heck no.
No.
Plus we're gaining some property that's gonna be available to us down the road.
For a while, you mean,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
It just,
do we need to see what Kennedy says about selling it, or do you need to make a motion first to sell it, then give it over to Kennedy and,
Well, I think
Still
we should
bids.
decide to sell it or not. Otherwise, why go to Kennedy?
yeah,
That'd be my opinion.
Well, I don't know if we find out what our options are. He might have options for us to think about.
Well, we're,
You
what,
know, make sure that we're sealed bids, whatever.
that's right, but why go through that if we're not gonna sell it?
yeah.
If we're not gonna sell it, we're gonna have to do something else. We're gonna have to wait till next year to overhaul it, because it's not in the budget.
Before you want to sell it and one doesn't, then that's where it's gonna go. So I said in one voice.
Well,
I'm not gonna make it unanimous, I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, then somebody want to make a motion to sell that house on 530 Sherman, is it? Get the address right?
Yes.
530 Sherman. Somebody want to make a motion to sell that house?
to have it moved off,
To have, yeah, to have it moved off.
I'll make that motion.
Someone to second that motion.
second,
All in favor, say, all right, further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
What if it's a tie?
I,
Ron,
aye.
Nay,
Nay.
Sarah, nay, aye. Passed by,
I think is a conflict, isn't it?
pardon?
What is it? Because it's right there. Is it a conflict? I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know how any of this works. Because it's stated before about to make it, I just want to make sure. I don't care either way. Just. Well.
What was that?
the ones there's a conflict
just
of
wanted to Make
interest.
sure there was no conflict. That's all I was just confirming. Because I don't know.
For selling a piece of city
I don't
property?
know, Robert, you've never voted on anything like this. Like,
I know, but I mean, we're
That's-
selling a piece of city
I
property.
know, that's why I'm just asking.
That's just-
Someone might say that we bought it for your benefit and now you're approving the sale again for your benefit. I'm just saying somebody might say that.
How would selling that house be I think my furnace is in that house. Still my furnace.
Just being devil's advocate, because that's just how. people
So.
are.
And when we were talking about the school, I talked to somebody, that it would have to be offered more to one. But it's whoever it was, they said if a city has a piece of property, they figure they no longer need, it can be sold. Well, this falls into that. So. Well, I guess the motion was passed by 3 ayes and 2 nays. And
so what we just need to know is how do we sell
How
it?
do we sell it?
move on, seal bids, minimum pricing
Whatever.
If it's that simple. Shoot, we
to
can,
be moved off.
we can get her out there to be sold right pretty quick, if anybody will buy it.
Yeah, what happens with that?
We'll have to cross that bridge,
Yeah, and it just,
but that should give us some idea of, what the house is really worth, so.
All right. Resolution for established address on 941 Sherman. Any
which place
questions?
is that?
That's the, Housing Sources rents the building up there. We have it in our system that it's 941, but Blue Earth County doesn't have an address on it. It's just a
Oh, yeah.
property ID number, so we just have to say that that's the address. It's been in our system. But that's the address. It's just.
Usually NSP XL always gave people addresses. That's how it was for many years. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, the county doesn't have one for it, and that's what we have for it is.
We've changed it once, a couple times since I've been on addresses or give a place address. You know, so if that's what it's been all along.
Yeah, it's up there, behind the county shop, I think.
Joins.
It's Mike Doyen's shop.
Oh, okay.
So,
Just need to pass that resolution.
Yeah, and like I said, we have the address already for it, it's just hasn't been to the county shop.
We'll move.
second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay, resolution 2022-4 American Rescue Plans money. That must be this big one.
Yep, that's the one Greg was talking about.
Yep.
When we looked it up, there was 2 different dollar amounts on there. Greg said go with the bigger number, so the bigger number is the one that's on that.
Well, that's,
So we make a motion to approve that resolution then?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 22-04.
second.
All in favor? I oppose, motion carried. All right, anything else under new business?
Insurance renewal the insurance renewal,
Yep,
that came just today too, so I don't know.
M&M.
No, it came from the league. Yeah.
well, they sell it through the league, right? M&M does, they're our agents.
I thought he used to always come here and make a presentation though when we did that, talk about the.
He did. used to come here.
And if, maybe I can get them on the books to come next month, I don't think it's due until.
What's the dollar amount on it? Is that one of them $17,000?
$19,989, and that's for
That's about
all
right.
of our properties. I
I
take,
think that's pretty good.
Yep.
Really.
and it expires in August. Wow. Or is this just our policy?
They sent it as a renewal. The email came today, you're up for renewal.
Didn't we do this already?
I don't know, but they're really ahead of it. It comes in due in August and you're talking about in April.
Let's find out what it really is.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, it's for.
yeah, table it till next month, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep. Okay, new miscellaneous business?
Certainly miscellaneous is really old, I suppose. What are we going to do about school? Let's keep that talking.
Well, did you get hold of whoever did, well, wasn't the guy that was sitting over here from Mankato? Wasn't he gonna?
He's still interested, but he's
Oh, no.
really.
No,
Greater
Oh,
Mankato.
Greater Mankato? Oh,
yeah,
thought you were talking about-
he was gonna look into whatever we had to do what,
He
you
was
know?
reaching out to people, but we talked about RFPs and we can't do an RFP if we don't own the building. So unless we say, okay, we're taking on the school, put out RFPs and we take that school for the amount, get the RFPs and then figure out what to do with it. That's the only way we can do RFPs. We have to own the building.
The only other thing we can do now is reach out individually to commercial realtors
Yeah,
and invite them out.
Mhm.
Invite them to just say, hey, why don't you, the next 30 days, if you got somebody that might be interested, come on out and take a look at it. We'll give you all the
like he
information.
said, get hold of drummers or whoever, and
If that
one's got,
doesn't generate anything, then are we done or? I mean, I don't know. I mean, should we give Ashley the direction here to call the commercial realtors and that kind of folk
Yeah.
developers?
Yeah, Ryan from Greater Mankato Growth was gonna reach out to some people too, so I'll follow up with him.
To find out, yeah, what he's done, if he's done anything, which I doubt.
There is an individual in Lakota, Iowa that took over the school down there. I haven't got all the facts yet. But he turned it into some like apartments, you know. He's probably an Iowa boy. You probably don't want to come to Minnesota and do that. I mean, Scott's showed interest, but I mean, yeah. We need to search out all of our avenues first. And
yeah. No, we gotta, yep.
figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to just drop it here yet. I mean, we want to continue to, if there's a way, but I think it's pretty well run its course as to, we probably can't afford it. I mean,
Right.
that's been made pretty clear, that we aren't gonna be able to afford it.
Well, see what you can come up with, Ashley.
Scott was really concerned about the tax burden and he was contacting the county to see how that would work out. Estimated value and all that stuff. He says that would be one of the biggest things.
Yeah,
Cause he would be putting $400,000-800,000 in it the next couple of years doing roofs.
Yeah.
And he just, and I know there's some input the city has on tax burden, but it's a county thing. And he also said something interesting. I thought, he goes, if that school gets torn down, you might see an increase across the whole town in the tax base, that we all might take a hit.
Doesn't pay taxes now.
No, it doesn't
Will.
pay taxes, but he
You-
said,
You will, because I think because there'll be, isn't the school tax, there's something to do with school tax or something?
there's some kind of credit in our taxes because there's a
Yeah.
building here. If the building
Yes.
disappears, everyone gets a bump up to cover that. kind of-
building.
yeah.
That could be,
So he said we might be in for a surprise if the building gets torn down.
Well, I don't want to see it torn down. I would love to see somebody take care of it and move on with it.
Well, then the question is, maybe I should know this, but once it, let's say it is tore down. Who owns the land then?
they do.
This
yes.
is-
School still does.
But it might have been given to the school years ago
Yeah,
to have a school on it, so.
yeah, that's true too. I mean, that's a possibility.
Yep.
It may have to just be
And that's,
a park.
deal with it, whatever.
Yeah, we don't know that. I mean,
Right.
Nobody knows. But if you think about too, if you tear it down and all the footings come out, you can't just throw housing up. It's gotta be soil corrections and stabilizations and all kinds of stuff. So,
Anywhere,
yeah.
Yeah.
anywhere.
Find out, see what you can find out.
Yeah, I'll get a hold of Brian.
Yep.
See. And if he hasn't reached out to somebody, do you guys want me to reach out to like drummers and, or should I
Yeah.
ask him to reach out to them?
You can reach out to a couple commercial realtors. They would represent drummers and developers and two. you know.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, get his advice, but push him.
Yeah.
Let's move, please. Perfect.
And we gotta know.
And then I did have a question in the revenues.
Mhm.
What the heck was it? The fire relief that comes from the state, that revenue, there was a $2,000 entry in that for revenue, and it's usually 20.
They did get an additional
Okay.
monies from the state, so
This
that could be,
month.
but I'll double check just to, and then I can
Okay.
email you the,
Okay, this month, I mean,
okay, this month?
well, I was in March,
Okay, I'll double check.
it was a new
Cause there was
entry.
that one missing on Hawkins, you know, so. You know, this the 651, yeah.
I just want to be sure that we're
Yeah.
tracking the revenue.
All right, in the minutes there, it stated that we needed to talk to Kennedy, see what it takes, whatever, for all of us to be personnel committee. I don't see any information on that.
Haven't got it from him. He hasn't sent anything.
Huh?
He hasn't sent anything. He said he was gonna write it up that day. He hasn't sent anything on the, should become the personnel. I would assume it's just a resolution.
You call him asking about that.
Yeah.
Sent like 10 other letters, maybe you just said, get that one done.
And make sure we get the publishing, requirements and all that, yeah.
All right, one other thing, cameras. Jake redone his office. Camera didn't get plugged in. The camera is recording everything. There's a letter from Kennedy here talking about being fair. What do you want to do with the cameras? I am so sick and tired of getting letters about cameras. I think we ought to just get rid of them all. Be a lot less discussion.
This one's recording too, right?
This one, that one, and this
I
one.
mean,
Outside, the whole thing's recorded.
but it's all being recorded here. This location's being recorded here.
Yeah.
Right. And that location's being recorded there.
Fully 100%.
What's the difference? I don't understand the issue.
There's 8 months of stored footage up there. Actually, that's 20 up there that you have to go
And that's all it's
for you.
for, I mean, we put.
I think the only reason it was brought up is because she had an error message.
Yeah.
And then Hawk came out and said they were unplugged.
It keeps pinging an alarm on mine, so I don't.
And I know there was issues with them being plugged. You didn't want them on for a while there.
Was there ever a motion for anybody to live feed them daily? Was that the purpose of
The
them?
purpose was for, actually, really was for her, or the clerk's security. here.
Well, and it was
So
for
in case something happened.
loss
Safety,
mitigation.
theft,
Yeah.
security.
Yeah,
You said you didn't, we said we didn't want her having that on there anymore. So then you have
It's just my, like, the front door in the lot.
because when she told me she had an error message, I said, well, why didn't you notice that sooner? And she said, because I don't have the shop on there.
Why would anybody contact a lawyer about cameras not being on? Why wouldn't you talk to the personnel committee and go, why aren't the cameras being viewed down here? But we get the lawyer involved and we're spending money to get a letter from him multiple times about these cameras and people getting treated fair. I just don't get it.
Well, I don't see it. It's the same difference either way, the way it looks to me.
Well,
The
they
thing
should,
is, they're not on the net, and like all of us have access to all the cameras. We were all given login information. So if we were,
Yeah, we were.
none of us have it, but we all were given login information. So if we wanted to access it on our phone, like,
I've never done it.
Is it on a personal phone right now?
The office ones, yeah.
All the clerks have their city, like, I remember sitting at a game with another clerk from another city and she was checking something because she got somebody asked her something.
I didn't know very many cities had.
Yeah.
Amboy has theirs, and the clerk is the only one allowed to view them at all times, whenever.
Yeah.
There's.
Here, I could have been watching it.
Yeah. I think, I mean, okay, when we went back to them, I didn't want them. When we were talking about doing, I didn't want them. And then it was more of a safety thing. And then we thought, yeah, we should do it.
So
And then it was a loss mitigation thing too, because if people were breaking into Vernon Center and somewhere else. And then it kind of turned into, we didn't like the police department that was here and we wanted the clerk to see when they were here and when they weren't. So and I remember when we said we were gonna do it, I didn't want it to be watching the employees. I only wanted it to be for when something happened.
That's right.
That's exactly what.
And that's exactly what it should be.
That's where they are.
and that's what, more or less what's happening now. I mean, he goes to work every morning. If the door's broke, he can look to see who walked in the place.
Or school bus.
Or yeah, the school bus back in the telephone deal up there.
Yeah.
Up, it recorded it, it got reported, I took care of it, I talked to Paul's boss, I talked to Consolidated.
Backed into the pole.
Backed into a telephone.
Telephone pedestal.
I mean, along with that meeting, when we did get that, we talked about a half door being put in there. That's never, ever got done. Is that something that should be done for security reasons?
Well, you
I
know,
thought we motioned to do it.
you're right. We
we
did.
did make a motion for solid core doors there and there. and
That's when
on the
Brian was
storeroom,
here.
And we motioned for a half door here.
Right.
It's
Then
never
we
got
got,
done.
we got estimates for.
You
the
made a
door.
motion for fire safes. We've
Oh,
never
yeah.
bought.
Yeah.
We got estimates for it and we thought it was too much. It wasn't worth it.
For what?
But, and
The
I think,
doors.
I think that's why when the past clerk was here, that keypad or the number pad on the outside of the door, you all were supposed to be able to fob in and that it was supposed to buzz people in, but then she did that without your guys' permission.
Yeah, that was real weird.
So now we have this out here that's not even used anyway, so I don't know. I don't think the
personally-
camera or a half door or the panic button, if something's really going on, is not going to save me.
No.
But for afterwards, you can watch the footage of it. That's all they're there for. They're not gonna protect me and they're not gonna protect Jake. They're-
Personally, I think there should be a solid corridor there and a security there. You don't just walk into the county building and
No.
talk to anybody. You walk up to a
Glass.
window with a
With slot in it.
door,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
I mean, that's the way of the world. You don't walk into LJP. You know, being buzzed in. I mean,
Really?
come on.
I mean, we motioned for it to be done. I just,
Yeah.
I would rather, I don't want to see Jake have to do it.
No, let's.
You know what I mean? I'd rather have
Have a
just hire somebody
contract.
to do it.
You gotta have a contractor do it, so.
Let's,
Well, I think Brian was gonna do it the last time. I thought he talked.
No, well, Jim was gonna do it, but we find out nobody can do nothing anymore.
right.
I mean, we got Sternitsky across the street
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half a block away. Give him a shot.
in town.
Couple.
But you get two.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
get
say,
two
we gotta
bids.
Get a couple.
You got Brett right up the street there too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, get them
Don't
two.
know if he does that kind of work.
You can still put a bid and then
Got her two bids.
Yeah, a door, would you say a solid corridor there? Is that what you
Solid
said?
corridor.
Is that what
Would it be
you-
steel?
We actually talked about three of them because this door is almost always open. But,
I don't ever have it open.
and we
anymore.
talked about making the storage room more of a security room. So that is solid door, you
The
know,
one
there should
for
be a
my
phone
office,
line
like
in
this
there
one
and.
usually-
I mean, should we put, I mean, they got stuff in there too. Should we that door, and that door, this could just about be closed up at night. or during the day. And there's,
She just says.
She just said she keeps that one.
Yeah,
closed.
keep this one.
Okay,
this
yeah,
one closed
but I
and
mean-
locked. I just-
So
Yeah, that one
if
used
we
to
get a
be
third
for
one, it should be
years.
over there.
the Legion,
Yeah.
because they have guns and everything in there.
Yeah, yeah.
3 doors,
3 doors,
but that one there would be
Half door.
half door.
that kind of door where,
Glass.
Dutch door.
yeah,
So
whatever,
Dutch
you know
door,
what
not-
it is.
Yeah.
So. Where it opens half and half, not half glass with a slide through on the top and door on the bottom, like this county. has.
But it'd be,
I actually, that's what I mean, is that there.
Like
where
a
people
bank,
do
a bank door.
business would
yeah,
be
where you,
a wall with a.
whoever
glass.
comes in to see you stops right there,
Yeah,
does the business.
yeah,
So I mean, that way that
so there'd
you're
be.
not gonna come over on front of your desk and sit there and.
It seems
It
weird.
might actually be easier to cut that 3-foot glass in the wall, put a solid core door in there and actually just put, you know, a
Get
bank
pricing on it
glass with
maybe
a
and then-
hole in it, you know, a little counter versus that whole door situation might be easier.
No.
Cause I'm sure there was only wiring down low. There's a switch in the wall, but there's basically.
Sample,
nothing
yeah.
there.
Checks are.
Some of those
Give them the ideas and say here,
Lose the wall here.
give them the ideas and say here.
Thinking.
Sounds good. Somebody want to make that an emotion for him?
We've already done that.
It's already been motioned. It's been,
Do we have to renew it?
I don't think so. It's been motioned and approved twice, so.
So,
Okay.
can we-
Please.
so I want me to reach out to a couple contractors. What would it cost to do this option or this option? And then they can find the doors and we don't even have to deal with looking for the doors.
Oh, absolutely,
Yep.
Yeah, they bring it all, put it in, install it,
Yep.
find
absolutely.
the product. Would they be steel doors?
They can do wood solid core doors.
I didn't know if steel would be more secure or would it look better?
Yeah.
But I mean.
Not any more
steel
secure.
there, steel there, it isn't that big a
You
deal.
have to for.
Well, actually, this door is on its last leg too and should probably be replaced.
Yeah.
That door, it slams.
Yeah, it does.
It slams?
Yeah.
Well, it's crooked in the jam, like I've looked at the hinges several times and it's kind of sprung from the closer.
Well, maybe we should have that one replaced then.
Do 4 of them.
Yeah.
4 doors.
Yep. By rights, you don't even need a window in it. Or I suppose it's okay to have a window so you see who might be there,
That's
but
where I hang my.
Now you know where that $30,000 is gonna go that you got.
I think we got future improvement money for this building,
Yeah,
a lot of it.
Yeah, because, okay, on that, are we? Parking lot out here? Remember how we kind of budgeted for that, but then we put it on hold in case we move to the.
Oh, I was-
We do parking lot?
we're gonna be looking into seal coating and stuff, and I was,
patching.
and patching. We might, I'm thinking, this is my thinking, the way the oil's gone and stuff, I would guess, and it sounds, some of the bids I've heard of, like, asphalt is gonna be high. So anything to do with tar, like seal coating, you could maybe add 30% there. So instead of, say, 100, it'd be 130, or instead of 200, it'd be 260. So that we might have to put off for a year.
Well, it's concrete up here, though.
No, yeah, but I'm just,
Yeah, they're, concrete.
what we all got to do.
Anybody know if that went up this year?
I'm sure it did. They're charging fuel surcharge on everything too.
Like I say, we're gonna be looking into patching and we might even cut that down to some extent if they're gonna, because that patching even might, oil is oil. I mean, that's no matter what you use it
I
on.
think the cement out here might be delayed a year because I think costs are gonna fall back down by next year.
I think so too.
I do know that some contractors are showing up and they're the only bidders. And
Yeah.
big projects, $1 million,
Busy.
millions dollars,
Because they're so busy or? Huh?
contractors are already filling up, so they're ending up the only bidder. That's not good.
No.
For the person
Bidding.
putting out the bid,
Does it throw another year of future improvement money in there? Because we did budget for that roof and we budgeted for that parking lot. Does it stop or does it still throw another
Yeah, it's
12 grand in there?
whatever's in the budget goes in every
Yeah.
year, so.
So it earns.
It's going somewhere. And if it goes up, there'll be more money to cover it.
All right, anybody else with anything under miscellaneous?
I just have a question. Jake, do you, plan like street sweeping the lot up here? this week?
Probably using a fire hose
Okay,
to wash it off.
okay.
Just kind of seeing what these rains would do and maybe we'll get a monsoon tomorrow night, I think they're talking, but yeah, it needs some attention. I'll probably, it'd be too much turning around and with people coming in and out.
Anchor up here and be done with it.
Yeah, just bring the tank and wash it off myself. Or
Perfect.
have one of the guys help me.
Lovely.
So what would you guys like me to do with the cameras? Get that straightened out.
It's okay the way it is.
I'd say
Keep recording.
We
It as is.
originally wanted it.
And just know what, you know.
Cause you'll know if anything's wrong up there, you can just call the sheriff too.
Yeah, if I see the doors broken into, I'll look. at
You
the
know,
cameras.
or if if there's an accident up there, you got the tape for, what'd you say, 8 months?
Yep.
You know, so,
I would say if the doors are broke, don't go in. Just call them.
well,
You mentioned when he was talking, Greg, something about having 2 meetings a month. Do you think that's something we need to do
Well,
here?
I'm telling you, I mean, how are we gonna look at all the stuff that Greg is saying we gotta look at?
Here's the bills here and it's 10:30 and haven't even looked at them yet.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
and I know it's easy to say, somebody could come in early and all that, blah, 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 but that doesn't really happen.
no, it doesn't.
I did it last month.
You know what?
I
You're
did.
hired.
I did it last month. I had parent conferences until like 7:45 tonight.
You can do it every time, you know?
I mean, I think
Summer coming.
I'm okay if we end up needing a meeting every 2 weeks, but like you said, we'd have to change our code
Yeah,
and make it, so if we, if something comes up to where we think, okay,
Well, did we go back to the first Monday of the month then this Monday?
probably, yeah, yep, yeah, you'd have to.
Right?
No, that'd be 2 in a row. Give me the first and second.
Well, I know,
I mean,
and skip that.
first Monday.
The
and
first Monday in
following-
If you remember, we had so many holidays following that first one, and that's why we pushed
That's
to the
why we did
second.
it. So it might have to be the second and the last.
Yeah, I could do that. It could be the second and the last, yeah, maybe. Because that was a problem. The holidays were all
4th
falling
of
off.
July fell on, we'd always get that Monday off from the 4th of July.
Yep.
We'd
Yep.
Get the Memorial Monday off.
yeah.
Yeah,
But even looking at the Excel spreadsheet, I saw a bill I thought was iffy. I'm saying, hey, that Hawkins bill, what'd they bring? Because it should have been higher, and it was just a digit
Yeah,
missed.
yeah.
So you can kind of, if you know what stuff is,
Yeah.
kind of tell.
well,
And my door's always open. If you guys want to come look at stuff, you can always come hang out with me. I don't
The
mind.
hard part is those, we can't tell you to do anything with it.
No, but
Yeah,
you
we
can
see
say,
something,
you
yeah.
can say, hey, I noticed this, and then it's a suggestion. It's not you telling me.
Yeah.
So I take suggestions all the time. I love them.
So we pretty
I love
much
them.
ready?
find out from the lawyer what it takes to change that. Change the personnel thing. And I think we should, we can probably know at our first meeting of the month whether we need to have that second one. Just leave it optional.
Well, if we're gonna start really looking forward and start dealing with engineers and MPCA and all that, we'd probably have to condemn property for expanding the lagoon. I mean, that takes some time and some meetings,
If you gotta have another pond, you're gonna have to, Yep.
Or have it studied, or if we don't need another pond, but, have it engineered again. The 14th time.
and he said too, it's time, maybe this is the time to look at the new filter plant.
Yeah.
To replace whatever we need in there.
Well, at this.
But there
point,
again, too, the state don't know what we're gonna do yet neither.
If you were if that house would go away and you were doing the filter plant, you'd want to put the well and the filter plant all in one deal, right?
Yeah, but it'd be a waste to not put it in here.
Pardon?
Filter plant will still fit in here.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, you would combine a new well, right, on the property and that all in one bundle,
I don't know.
because they.
It might be a lot easier to do it here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, you got a building that's gonna be big enough.
Well, I mean,
Already.
the filter plant here, but combine a new well on that property down there. On the,
Oh, you mean as far as, okay,
you
we're
know,
talking two projects.
I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're redoing that, you're
Yeah.
drilling a new well a block away. The main that comes up there, you do
Actually,
it
that's
all in
not
one step.
let's,
That well wouldn't probably cost that much money, 50 grand, probably.
It probably costs us 50, maybe by the time you get it plumbed.
Yeah.
But
Does it hurt a well to sit there, like say it what, sat there for 20 years being unused? Does that hurt the casing and stuff?
Oh, you don't want to put it in.
Just filter
Yeah.
When I was at the conference, we talked with an engineer that was up there. Is the city happy with our engineering firm, or would they ever be looking for another one?
got rid of them once.
The person that came down, that was talking, just said if the city's ever interested, they'd love to come down and
What's the
talk.
firm?
Oh,
Where's your pen or your cup or what they give you?
they did give me one too.
I mean, if they're out of,
Wait for a while. Huh?
We had Wink for a while.
Yeah,
You know, we didn't do anything with them.
I think they were the one that gave us the $300,000 building estimate,
Yeah,
didn't they?
yeah,
really didn't do anything with them other than that.
but we don't, if you go past being local, you gotta pay for all that road time. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that we should. There are other engineers out there. There's other attorneys out there.
Yep.
And I'm sure if we engineer that whole project, you could write a grant for a portion or maybe all of it.
It's entirely possible.
But you have to have it scoped out first.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's.
Can't be in
We gotta
reverse.
be,
project ready or.
gotta be going here. I just read there's some $69 million they're releasing here in Minnesota, but you got university or something to take advantage of it, but you know, they are starting to.
We supposed to take these booklets home?
Yeah, you can take those one home and then I'll.
Is it worth taking home?
If you
insurance
don't
and
want to take
research.
it home and read it all, you can just leave it here. That's fine.
I ain't
I think it
gonna,
was that bowling ink is the one.
Well, any further business? If not,
so move.
someone in a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, it's 7 a.m.
Oh, I don't know if I can get up.
Anyway,